I was muted. Hello. Welcome. Fixing my fucking computer. My computer. Bleep bloop. Brady.
What's up, brother? One
What
of
up,
my
man?
favorite topics.
Yeah. This is the third one. We have done this before, and I'm just gonna keep going on these every time I feel like having a tangent. I'll just keep going on this stuff.
Yeah, super pertinent time to do it, considering what's going on with all these kids taking all their anger out on everyone else and going crazy. And I would offer the biggest culprit, psychological illness that's inspired by pharmaceutical psychotropics. I don't know if there's a term for a form of psychosis or mental disorder that has to do with specifically pharmacological psychotropic. But
Well, psychotropic just means anything that is pharmacologically made as medicine. You know what I mean? It's a very broad term. But like I take antipsychotics, SSRIs. I'm bipolar type 1 manic, so I've had psychotic episodes and stuff. And
I have something better for you.
like for me, huh?
Can you hear me? Am I coming in okay?
What's up, Brady?
Have you ever
Yeah, you are
tried
now. Yeah.
N-acetylcysteine, NAC?
I've tried phenibut. I've
Yeah,
tried
DHA didn't do much for me either.
man, I've tried a lot of different research chemicals that weren't, regulated
Check
by the FDA and stuff.
this stuff out. This stuff is
Tried,
actually very
what was that?
occurring
DHA.
in dark
Is that
leafy
one of it?
greens like broccoli,
Yeah,
asparagus.
me either.
Asparagus has the highest content now.
Crap. Phenibut
And
did a
if you wanna,
lot.
the
Phenibut's probably
therapeutic
one of the
of
best
asparagus,
research
you could eat about a
chemicals that
pound of
anybody can get. If
asparagus
they
just
have
be ready for your pee
serious
stink,
anxiety problems and they can't,
but
get to a doctor or something, like if they're in another country, Phenibut's a
like
very
right away, like eat the whole
awesome
pound
research chemical.
right away, all at once, yeah. And that's a mildly therapeutic dose. Oh, I recommend wrap it in a little bit of bacon, a little bit of garlic, a little butter. But if you go ahead and just order some NAC offline, it's like $20 for a bottle. It used to be illegal. They
Like
removed
a pound
the over-the-counter status
over how
during the
long?
beginning of COVID. It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your mind, especially the
damn.
WebMD in acetylcysteine or
Jesus.
NAC.
How?
You are absolutely gonna love this stuff, man. I've taken a lot of supplements myself. Most of them do nothing,
yeah, well,
like you said.
Bacon makes
This
everything
stuff
good. So does
has
butter.
been, this stuff is incredible. It's absolutely amazing.
Let me look it up real quick.
It's
NAC?
really good at all forms of addiction, whether you're addicted to toxic relationships, sugar, playing too many video games, anything. It really mitigates that void that's inside all of us that we're trying
there are
to
some
fill.
that do things.
It kind of fills it up so you feel like complete and whole.
Okay.
Amazing. It's the precursor.
Oh yeah. Okay, so this is the NAC is a supplement form of Christine, a semi-essential amino acid. NAC has many health benefits, including replenishing antioxidants and nourishing your brain. Which nourishing your brain can mean many things. There was something else I found too. It's helps prevent side effects caused by drug reaction and toxic chemicals. That sounded about right.
Overdose, like too much Tylenol. They use it for Tylenol overdose, as a matter of fact. So this is super non-toxic. It's really amazing. I do recommend taking it with food to avoid a stomach ache, but that's about it.
Well, as long as this stuff is legal, I would definitely recommend trying it. You know what I mean? So I would recommend trying Phenibut as well if anybody's
one of the
having
interesting
serious
things about
anxiety
NAC
issues
is that it fights COVID in 5 different scientifically verifiable ways. And the FDA removed its over-the-counter status at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and it was only recently reinstated.
Oh, that's weird. Medicine.net, according to the FDA, since NAC was not widely used as a dietary supplement before it was used as a drug, it is basically unlawful. That's as of December 8th, 2022 on medicinenet.com. So that's relatively recently. I've heard the COVID thing because I was looking at it to see what effect does.
Cool mental disorders for you too. I don't know if I remember them all. I think one of them.
Oh, I got a whole list I've been looking up all day, so you're good. Yeah, I mean, you can bring up whatever you want to, but we're going to go over them systematically here in just a few minutes. I was just going over this NAC thing with you. It says on NIH.gov,
and I can tell you anecdotally from my own experience, I got COVID and health. NAC.
It says NAC is inexpensive, has very low toxicity, has been FDA approved for many years, and has the potential to improve therapeutic strategies for COVID-19. NAC administered intravenously, orally, or inhaled may suppress SARS-CoV-2 replication and may improve outcomes if used timely. So that's from a pretty reputable source, the National Institute of Health. It's crazy. Well, the National Library of Medicine agrees with you, at least so far as I can find. But it says may. You know what I mean? It just depends on the person, I assume, and their.
If you check out the WebMD for the other kind of interesting benefits it has, it reduces hair pulling by 40%. You know, if you ever go so crazy that you start pulling out your hair or picking your scabs or kind of self-harm, you know, but we've all been there maybe once or twice. Where you're just, and I've been there a couple times, man, and it's like an unperceivable amount of rage almost, you know, that gets you to that point. And so I really do understand the mind state of someone that's in that state, and to consider that it reduces that by 40% is incredible. You know, that's a huge thing. It's about very good for you. I helped me as a musician too. As a musician, I was always really good at playing guitar, really good at singing. Could never do them both
Carnal
at the
says,
same
"I love
time.
asparagus."
Absolutely sucked at doing them both at the same time. Totally different skill set, yeah. And I took NAC, and it just boom overnight. I could sing and play guitar at the same time. It was something that I had been practicing for 6 months to a year.
It's a very hard skill.
Maybe longer than that, you know, trying to sing and play at the same time. It was damn near impossible for me. But right after taking NAC, it all just clicked and just came together. So can't recommend it enough. Just a couple. Nice.
Well, I'll definitely look into it now because I see the benefits, and I've looked it up. You know,
a couple off-label uses that it has. Just a heads up: if you smoke weed after taking some, you will get twice as stoned for twice as long.
As my general practitioner, who's really me and my general practitioner are really cool. She knows everything about me and what I do, so I might have to say, hey, have you heard about NAC?
And it makes your dreams incredibly vivid. Your dreams will come back full force. You'll have some gnarly dreams. And it's mildly psychedelic. If I take some before bed, I might have some very psychedelic visions before bed.
I gotcha.
And it also adds that kind of introspective, kind of therapeutic aspect of realizing, man, I was so much more of an asshole than I needed to be in that situation. You know, like that introspection. Stays legal forever. Yeah. After taking it shortly before bed, I quickly fell into a dream state, and I saw what looked like a Roman sculpture of like Zeus's face, like the face of God. Yeah, but it kept changing positions.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can post it in the chat if you want it to be there
N-acetylcysteine.
forever. You
It's a
just post,
precursor to
I'll
glutathione, which is your
well, I
body's natural
closed the damn tab,
antioxidant
or
that
I
your
would
body
post what I
produces
found
androgen.
from NIH.gov. Let me see what my speakers are doing here. Perry, what up, big dog? Perry,
What's up? What's going on?
nothing. Just waiting on you.
Waiting on me?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Just seeing what you're up to. How's your day been?
Oh yeah, I'm listening.
You're breaking up just a little bit.
I'm in the car. That might be why. I don't know if. Let me see if I can
Oh,
switch
okay.
my
So you're not
mic,
home yet?
maybe.
I got you.
Hold on. Yeah, no.
It's all
Nope.
good.
But I can hear pretty well, so I'll be listening.
Okay. Hunterheim, what's up? You with me?
I'm here. Loud and clear.
Did you just wake up?
No. I dropped my wife off to work and I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm in pain. In pain.
You're in pain?
Yeah, back. Oh,
Oh, your
man,
back pain. I'm sorry. So you're laying down right now, aren't you? Or lying down?
No, I'm standing up. Lying down doesn't seem to help. So I'm going to stand
Ooh.
up, call my doctor in a second and get a
Okay.
yoga ball. No, I need fucking injection in my spine, I think.
You need some steroids?
Yeah, I'm going to ask for him. I'm going to ask for a epidural. That's what I had last time.
God, we're getting fucking old, aren't we?
Sucks shit. It fucking sucks. What was Brady talking about? What was Brady talking about?
NAC.
What do you add to? What gives you psychedelic dreams? What was he talking about? I missed that.
Brady, tell him that part again.
Quickly taking what though? I missed. I heard all of this. No, I heard all of this. I just wondered what it was you took.
NAC. Brady, can you type that into chat for everybody so that
Yeah.
they can. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, Brady. Just type that in the chat for us so that Owen and I can see it. NAC. You pronounced it perfectly, and I can't fucking remember it. There you go. That's what it is, Hohenheim.
N-acetyl or N-acetylcysteine.
I think acetyl's right because it's acetylcholine in your. So yeah, N-acetylcysteine. Okay. Well, shit. I mean, I'm all down for nootropics and research chemicals that work. You know, I'm always down for that shit. So
To quit smoking.
this is. What's that?
I started taking NAC because I was listening to a podcast about nootropics for quitting smoking. And
yeah,
I chose that one, and that's when I noticed all the extra benefits. Extension drug. Anti-aging life extension drug.
I got you. I hope I'm probably knowing me, I'll probably order some and try it. That's just me though. I'm always a research chemical fan, especially if it's got some good backing behind it. And from what I've studied, it looks like it has some uses, some good uses.
Also works like Adderall, my dude. It's gonna be some of the best, most natural Adderall you've ever had in your life. Yeah, like a microdose.
I can't do.
To give you a warning, Thomas,
uppers because
I have to throw you a heads up, and everyone else needs a heads up. The NAC is a antioxidant, and when it goes into your body, it will absolutely destroy any pharmaceutical psychotropics you're taking. The SSRIs, the benzos, all those things will be instantly eaten up and kind of cleansed out of your body. So you might notice a shock from that, and might want to talk to your doctor about ways to mitigate that, like maybe spacing it out, maybe taking it right before bed and then waking up and taking the pill.
Sure. Yeah, what you said a second ago about it, cleansing toxic toxic chemicals and stuff and like drugs out of the
Perfect.
body. That is what I read as well. So that seems like you're correct. I'm not being a dick here at all. We don't need to make the whole episode about NAC, but I do want people to pay attention to it, and I also want people to do research into their own into their own psychology and look and see if there's any research chemicals out there to help you if you're not actually getting actual medication from a psychiatrist that you need to live. So NAC may help you a lot. So definitely look into it. I didn't see anything when I was looking through Google for a good 10 minutes. I didn't see anything that was terribly bad about it. I didn't notice any like serious criticism. So maybe it's a wonder drug, or not a drug, but a wonder supplement. Who knows? But let's. I guess we'll go over what we went over last time. Brady, I'm gonna preach a little bit. I'm sorry. Perry, you with me, brother?
Yep, just still
Still
in the car.
Yeah.
Brady, let me just give you a bit of friendly advice. Something that I've observed. You need to, and I mean, we weren't even really in any discussion yet, so it's not like we necessarily tangented off of anything, but I feel as though we could maybe make our points a bit more succinct so we can get a little bit more flow and a little bit more opportunity for new things to be talked about, which therefore equals a little bit more knowledge to be gained in a session. I mean, just say the thing and, encourage us to research it. I mean, we don't need to hear personal experiences, any of that. Not obviously, perhaps I sound like a
Brady,
like a dick,
it's all good, man. We just try to
friendly,
stay we try to stay academic here, and we try to stay on topic. Later on in the episode, we'll start
thank God
jumping
for
around
that.
and getting really.
Thank God for that, because
And
the rest of Colin is a dumpster fire, so I'm actually right on board with it. Perfectly comfortable
you're
with
good,
that.
brother. I don't mind you
I'm
talking about
perfectly
NAC.
comfortable.
We just
those
need to move
words
on
don't
to the
scare me.
episode.
no one wants to say shut up either and like let's get on, right?
Yeah,
It's an
everybody
uncomfortable
wants to be nice.
position for us.
But-
So yeah.
But for
No
people
worries.
listening to this in the future, we want them to be able to have some educational value from it, and we're learning too. So let's last time I covered anxiety disorders. Does that sound familiar, Perry?
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was 2 weeks ago, because that was mental disorders too. And the first one we didn't even really get to talk about it because I can't remember who was. I think it was Lance or somebody immediately called in, and I think we got off on tangents. But so we talked about anxiety disorders just real quick. We'll go over them again. Separation anxiety disorder, specific phobias or any phobia, social anxiety disorder. We went over panic disorder, which is I have that as well. Generalized anxiety disorder, I've got that as well. And things like agoraphobia, things like fear of going outside, fear of spiders, fear of whatever else. So those are your anxiety orders, and they can cause panic attacks. That's your serious problem with disorder, is that you're going to get anxiety attacks, which are lighter forms of panic attacks. Then you're going to get the full-blown sympathetic nervous system, something's trying to kill me feeling, just randomly. When you have generalized anxiety disorder and you have panic disorder, your sympathetic nervous system is fucked. It'll just engage whenever you want it, whenever it pleases, pretty much, or whenever you're thinking about something or a trigger or whatever. And trying to avoid anxiety attacks and panic attacks, if you're not medicated properly, is almost impossible. And I can personally attest, if anybody listening to this in the future or anything suffers from anxiety in any form, it gets worse if you don't try to help it. Now there's environmental anxieties, obviously, like if you got to pay your rent and shit like that. That is also anxiety. But these neurological disorders like panic disorder and generalized GAD, generalized anxiety disorders, these are neurodegenerative disorders. So they are caused by neurochemical imbalances and also probably neuron damage. So let's move on to next. We talked about anxiety disorders, and there's a shitload of type of disorders. There's mood disorders, there's eating disorders, there's everything. The next ones, let's talk about dissociative disorders, okay? So the main one obviously is dissociative identity disorder, okay, known as multiple personality disorder in the old DSM, split personality disorder. Uh, it's a member of the family of dissociative disorders, basically in the DSM-5 and all the what do they call it? All the adjuncts like DSM-5, DSM-5 TR, ICD-10, ICD-11. Uh, these are all diagnostic manuals, American and international, that designate these definitions of behavioral patterns. So, dissociative identity disorder is characterized by primarily dissociative disorder symptoms. Secondary key symptoms are shared with complex PTSD, borderline and schizotypal personality disorders, and tertiary key symptoms are shared with fibromyalgia, sleep disturbances, eating disorders, and body dysmorphic symptoms. So, uh, just a dissociative disorder, let's look at that. Just in general, dissociative disorders are conditions that involve disruptions or breakdowns of memory, awareness, identity, or perception. People with dissociative disorders use dissociation as a defense mechanism pathologically, which means as an illness, and involuntarily. Okay, so they dissociate. Everybody here knows inherently what dissociation means. Separation from oneself. Sometimes you can dissociate in meditation. Sometimes when I was in psychosis, I would dissociate. Um, there's just the general idea of dissociative disorders, and then we're going to talk about identity disorder, dissociative identity disorder. Okay, so it says personality states alternately show in a person's behavior. However, presentations of the disorder vary. Dissociative identity disorder is usually caused by excessive and unendurable stress and or trauma, which commonly happens in childhood. The sense of a unified identity develops from a variety of experiences and sources. In a child who is overwhelmed, the factors that should have blended together or become integrated over time instead remain separate. So childhood adversity and abuse often leads to the development of dissociative identity disorder, but not exclusively, because we know there's plenty of times that doesn't happen. So we see that. Let's see okay, the disorder is accompanied. Let's see. Genetic and behavioral. Okay, so DID requires an unintegrated mind to form, a baby. Genetic and biological factors are also believed to play a role in this as well. The diagnosis should not be made if the person's condition is better accounted for by substance use or seizures or other mental health problems, or even like imaginative play as children or certain religious practices. This dissociative identity disorder is not necessarily any of those, but obviously it's genetic and biological. But it's obviously, as we're reading, it's trauma based. So dissociative identity disorder is accompanied by memory gaps, more severe than could be explained by ordinary forgetfulness. The personality states alternately show in a person's behavior. However, presentations are very different. Other conditions that occur in people with DID include PTSD, certain personality disorders like borderline personality disorder or avoidant personality disorder, depression, substance use, somatic symptom disorder, which is bodily symptoms that result from DID, actual physical illness. It's DIDs has comorbidities with all this stuff: eating disorders, OCD, sleep disorders. So let's see about the treatment. It says there is no medication to treat DID as there are for many other mental disorders. So treatment generally involves supportive care and psychotherapy, which I'm in psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is just going to a therapist who has a PhD or a bachelor's, or usually a PhD or some form of doctorate. If you have a real quality high-end psychotherapist. DID usually persists without treatment. It is believed to affect about 1.5% of the general population based on a small U.S. community sample, and 3% of those admitted to hospitals with mental issues in Europe and North America. And three, oh, okay, it's saying 3% of everybody admitted to hospitals with mental health issues have DID. That's weird. Okay. But so we'll just go with this. It's 1.5% of the general population. There's 8 billion people on planet Earth. So 1% would be, was that 8 million or 80 million? I guess it would be 80 million. So we're looking at over 100 million people with DID. That's fucking crazy. It says it is unclear whether increased rates of the disorder are due to better recognition of sociocultural factors such as mass media portrayals. The typical presenting symptoms in different regions of the world may also vary depending on culture, such as alter identities taking the form of possessing spirits, deities, ghosts, or mythical creatures, which other cultures would see as a common occurrence. So, this is the one where you make, because there's definitions. There's different definitions. Let's see. You have any questions, Perry? You have anything to say about this so far? You know anybody with DID?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of writing lately. I've been very encouraged to tap into my creative side, I think I told you.
Yes, it's beautiful.
And so I'm an okay drawer. I haven't tried poetry, but writing seems to call my name. And so in writing on do we choose beliefs or not, I talk about how I predict in about 30 years, by 2050, religions such as Christianity, Islam, etc., will be deemed as, maybe mental illness is a bit too harsh, but it will have psychological explanations and maybe considered a psychological disorder. Faith specifically having a criteria of truth that revolves around faith in things unseen is a psychological bug, not a feature, in my opinion. And the claiming to see ghosts, all of the other things,
Spirits,
the supernatural spirits
the
that you mentioned,
ancestral figures, yeah, all that stuff.
So that is a feature in many people's minds within the Christian community. I think at some point people will snap out of it and realize that this is a bug and a psychological disorder that could be could be explained through DID or something similar to that of what you're describing.
I think that's a good point. I think that's a really good point. I am not saying that any religious practice is a mental disorder. I don't think that in most cases that it's a mental disorder. Now, with insane extremism to the point of PTSD, that probably is a mental disorder that you have to deal with. But I don't know what it would fall under.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead.
There are people with mental illness who are also religious, but it's not religion that's creating the mental.
No.
So let's not be uncharitable.
Well, some people would disagree with you. Some people would say that religion creates a shitload of mental disorder and dissonance.
Well, an argument could be made for that, probably. So
I've heard people like Matt Dillahunty and other people say somewhat those same things. I'm not going to quote him and say he actually said that, but I've heard people like him say those things.
That's all.
Basically, religions cause. Like Christopher Hitchens said, it poisons everything. So he obviously thought that it caused a lot of mental aberrations and cognitive dissonance.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Let's talk about real quick. What's the definition of dissociation? Let's talk about that, because this whole dissociative branch of disorders is all related. So I'm going to read more on this so we can really dive deep into it. So dissociation, the term that underlies all these dissociative disorders, including DID, lacks a precise empirical and generally agreed upon definition. This is the nature of psychology, guys. It's just how it goes. It's a hard and a soft science. It's a cognitive science, and it's not cognitive psychology attempts to make the brain seem like a processing unit, like computations. Looks at the brain that way, and it looks at behaviors coming from the brain that way. And I think looking at psychology through neuropsychology, through psychiatry, through neuroscience, through cognitive psychology. That's where we're going to get our best, most efficient ways of dealing with these problems. It says a large number of diverse experiences have been termed dissociative, ranging from normal failures in attention to the breakdowns in memory processes characterized by the dissociative disorders in general. It is therefore unknown if there is a commonality between all dissociative experiences, or if the range of mild to severe symptoms is a result of different etiologies and biological structures. Other terms used in the literature, including personality, personality state, identity, ego state, and amnesia, also have no completely agreed upon definitions. Multiple competing models exist that incorporate some non-dissociative symptoms while excluding dissociative ones. So there's a big problem. There's a big problem defining this thing, but we know that it exists. Obviously, people have serious issues with this. It exists. It has to be studied. We have to give it definitions in order to be able to treat these people. So for anybody coming in and being like, oh, psychology is just a soft science, a bunch of bullshit, that's garbage. We actually help people with this. I am an example of being helped by the psychiatric medication that I take and also by the psychotherapy that I enact in. So it says, it says, due to the lack of consensus regarding terminology in the study of DID, several terms have been proposed. One is ego state, behaviors and experiences possessing permeable boundaries with other such states. I don't know about that. I'm not going to read that. That seems a little whoosh. Structural it's used by... What's that?
Oh, I wanted to add something quickly. I think what you said about religion is true. I think the majority of people I work with have PTSD. Am I very quiet, Thomas?
A little bit. You are a little quiet. That's why I'm close to the speaker.
Sorry, I'll speak a bit louder.
Let me Let me put my damn earphones on. Hang on.
No, it's not your fault. I think the majority of people I work with over the years, religious Christianity, seem to have kind of an irrational, kind of a PTSD. They're terrified. They're literally terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to add that.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you threaten people with hell, that's PTSD right there, right? Wouldn't you say that's mental abuse?
No, yeah.
Yes,
mental abuse,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's horrific.
It is horrific.
Okay.
I'm just laughing at the irony. I'm not laughing at the situation. I laugh a lot at irony in weird situations, so I'm just a weird person. So we understand that the definition is difficult. There's going to be psychometrically, there's going to be different ways to measure DID. But let's talk about the signs and symptoms, and we'll talk about this real quick. And let's see. According to the DSM-5, symptoms of DID include the presence of 2 or more distinct personality states, accompanied by the inability to recall beyond what is expected through normal memory issues. So other DSM-5 symptoms include a loss of identity as related to individual distinct personality states, loss of one's subjective experience of the passage of time, and degradation of a sense of self and consciousness, a conscious sense of self-awareness. In each individual, the clinical presentation varies and the level of functioning can change from severe impairment to minimal impairment. Just like any psychological disease. They're all like that. It's not black and white. It is not black and white. It's all gray. The symptoms of dissociative amnesia, and this is a different type of dissociative disorder, okay? DID and dissociative amnesia are comorbid with each other, but it is something different. I'll mention it in just a second. It says, the symptoms of dissociative amnesia are subsumed under a DID diagnosis and thus should not be diagnosed separately if DID criteria are met. Okay, so dissociative amnesia is basically forgetting what's happening to you while your other personality states are in control, right? That's what most people understand about DID is, you pop out of it and you're like, oh, what happened? That's kind of how it happened when I had psychosis and shit. I mean, I would pop out of it and be like, what the fuck am I doing? That's why I lost a lot of jobs. Let's see. So it says individuals with DID may experience distress from both the symptoms of DID, which means intrusive thoughts or emotions, which happens to me, and the consequences of the accompanying systems, like dissociation, rendering them unable to remember specific information. So that was a complex sentence, I know. It says, let me read it this way. Individuals with DID may experience distress from both the symptoms of DID and the consequences of the accompanying symptoms, like other things that happen, like dissociative amnesia, things like that. Amnesia between identities may be asymmetrical, so identities may or may not be aware of what is known by another. Individuals with DID may be reluctant to discuss symptoms due to associations with abuse, shame, and fear, or PTSD, or CPTSD. DID patients may also frequently and intensely experience time disturbances, that dissociative amnesia again. So it says around half of the people with DID have fewer than 10 identities, and most have fewer than 100. Although as many as 4,500 have been reported. The average number of identities has increased over the past few decades from 2 or 3 to now an approximately average 16. However, it is unclear whether this is due to an actual increase in identities or simply that the psychiatric community has become more accepting of a high number of compartmentalized memory and identity components. It's a very important sentence. So obviously we could talk about the comorbidities. Obviously people who have dissociative identity disorder are going to have comorbidities with bipolar, with substance use, with eating disorders, like I said earlier, anxiety disorders. They're going to have migraines, depression, all this stuff, all this somatic stuff, all these things, major depressive disorder, borderline. So, we could get into every comorbidity, but that pretty much answers it. We know that the causes, so let me look this up real quick and see if I can find you a better answer here. Okay, so when I say the word etiology, I'm talking about something causing an illness or a disease. So DID is etiologically complex. DID is multifactorial in its etiology, whereas psychosocial etiologies of DID include developmental traumatization and sociocognitive defects. Biological factors include trauma-generated neurobiological responses. So this is where we're getting into the depth of the causes, okay, of the biological causes of DID. So psychosocial just means the mental interacting with the social, okay? And the etiology is talking about how a disease comes to be, the cause of a disease. We'll read this sentence again. It says, psychosocial etiologies, etiologies of DID include developmental traumatization and sociocognitive defects. So let's look up sociocognitive so I can give you a good definition of that. I don't want to just leave these words out in the open here, because we all need to learn shit. Sociocognitive is a broad term used to describe cognitive processes relating to our phenomenology. Okay, so when somebody says sociocognitive, they're just talking about any cognitive processes associated with perception and language and physical cues and interpersonal information, stuff like that. So I guess you could just say interpersonal there. So we know that the biological factors include trauma-generated neurobiological responses. Biologically derived traits and epigenetic mechanisms are also likely to be at play. At this point, no direct examination of genetics has occurred in DID. However, it is likely to exist given the genetic link to dissociation in general and in relation to childhood adversity in particular. So stating that there is a lack of understanding regarding the etiopathology of DID, George Bither adds that many researchers and psychiatrists regard DID as the most severe form of a child-onset post-traumatic stress disorder because it is virtually impossible to find a DID patient without a history of PTSD. I think that's very important to understand. And it says there are currently two competing theories regarding the relationship between trauma and dissociation: the trauma-related model and the fantasy-prone model. We could get into the developmental trauma and talk about the therapies of it and how it, let's see. We could talk about the pathophysiology, which I forget what the hell that means. I read it the other day and I didn't look it up. Oh, the disordered psychological processes associated with disease. Okay, so basically the psychological effects of a disease. Okay. That's not important. I'm just trying to check, guys, if there's anything other on my list that I want to cover about dissociative identity disorder. We all kind of know what it is. We've seen them on movies and television shows and stuff. We pretty much understand where all this stuff comes from. And the main thing, of course, is that it's not easily definable. We know people have it. The average is like 1.5% of the population. 16 is the average number of other identities. We know that dissociative amnesia happens with this kind of thing. We know that somatic disorders can happen where it's actually physical problems caused from the DID. And there is a controversy. I guess we could. There's so much on this. There's so much work on DID. It looks like it's probably, along with narcissism, probably one of the most difficult mental disorders of our time, I would say. Perry, you got anything to say?
And that it has to do with trauma, usually in the child development stages. That's another key point that I feel like is important.
Very important. So we'll go down, because God damn, guys, we went over signs and symptoms. We went over causes. I didn't go over the pathophysiology because I didn't know if it was important. Restrictional phases. Let me read it real quick. Hang on. No, it's just talking about. Okay, DID patients also appear to show deficiencies in tests of conscious control of attention and memorization, and increased and persistent vigilance and startle responses to sound. So DID patients may also demonstrate altered neuroanatomy. That's interesting. Okay, so that means they have actual different placings of things anatomy is the placement of something in your body and the physiology is the operation of it. So I guess they have different neuroanatomy than we do. That's interesting. Experimental tests of memory suggest that patients with DID may have improved memory for certain tasks, which has been used to criticize the hypothesis that DID is a means of forgetting or suppressing memory. Patients also show experimental evidence of being more fantasy prone, which in turn is related to a tendency to over-report false memories of painful events. So it all falls back to childhood. And let's read. So there's differential diagnoses. There's like shitloads of diagnoses. We're not even going to go over that because that's above our pay grade to diagnose. We would have to get with a patient, read the diagnosis of these kinds. So we'll say this. It's not diagnosed in children. Sometimes they can have their alter egos at 3 years old. Sometimes. So the criteria require that an individual be recurrently controlled by two or more discrete identities or personality states, accompanied by memory lapses for important information that is not caused by substance abuse or other medications or other medical conditions, such as like partial seizures or things like that. So in children, the symptoms must not be better explained by imaginary playmates or other fantasy play. Diagnosis is normally performed by a clinically trained mental health professional, such as a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist, through clinical evaluation, psychometric testing, interviews with family and friends, and consider of any other ancillary material. So Specially designed interviews and personality assessment tools may be used in an evaluation as well, since most of the symptoms depend on self-reporting and are not concrete and observable. There is a degree of subjectivity in making the diagnosis. There you go. People are often disinclined to seek treatment, especially since their symptoms may not be taken seriously. Thus, dissociative disorders have been referred to as the disease of hiddenness. Hiddenness. So that's crazy. That kind of sucks. And then there's a part on differential diagnoses, but we won't cover that. There's a lot of controversy. We obviously covered all this. It gets really deep, but let's talk about the prognosis. If I can effing find it. Little is known about prognosis of untreated DID. It rarely, if ever, goes away without treatment, but symptoms may resolve from time to time, or wax and wane spontaneously. Patients with mainly dissociative and PTSD symptoms face a better prognosis than those with comorbid disorders like bipolar or BPD, or if they're still in contact with their abusers. It basically can end up being suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, self-harm, and the duration of the treatment can vary depending on patient goals, which can range from merely improving interpersonal communication and cooperation to reducing inter-alter amnesia, which is intrapersonal amnesia. But it generally doesn't go away. Doesn't look like it anyway from what I've been reading. Wow, there's so much to this. And of course, there's the epidemiology, and we could talk about that. That's basically just, for everybody listening, let's look up epidemiology, because I always get this confused with the virologist and immunologist. Epidemiology is the control of diseases. Deals with the incidence, distribution, and possible control of diseases. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to get into the history. So that's pretty much dissociative identity disorder and dissociative disorders in general. There's a lot of older terms that are used when talking about dissociative disorders, like dissociative fugue states, FUGUE. That's not really talked about in the literature anymore, so we're not going to really cover it. Seizures and like psychogenic non-epileptic seizures can occur in people with dissociative disorders. So there's also a thing called unspecified dissociative disorder, and that's just going to be the ones that they can't immediately pathologically measure, you know what I mean, or measure the pathology of. It's not even really, there's really no point in even going over that because it's self-explanatory. That's basically dissociative disorders in a nutshell. We could get deeper into that if you want to, Perry or Honenheim or Scott. But what do you think, Perry? You're my man.
Let's go next. What's next?
What's next? Okay. Let's move along.
Well, of course, unless Hohenheim and Scott have 2 cents.
Yeah.
I say, yeah, let's go next.
I mean, we were just anything on DID, and I mean, we all understand it's a childhood thing. It's based on PTSD. It can be comorbid with shitloads of other things. Scott Honenheim, do you know anybody with DID? Have you ever had any instances with it in your life, or what? Or am I talking to myself? I'm talking to myself. All right. Are we moving on? Are you there now? Your back is killing you, isn't it?
It's fucking killing me, man.
I'm so sorry, dude. I'm so sorry. All right, yeah, let's.
In like an hour, I'm going to be flying high, happy on some either cortisol into the spine or some pain medication. So I'll be back.
Hell yeah. All righty then. Let's talk about mood disorders. This is my shit right here. All right. So let's go through them. We got So obviously the mood, guys, is like the climate, and emotions are like weather, if that makes any sense. And anhedonia is kind of like its own separate thing. Lack of joy, the lack of feeling of joy or pleasure, which can be caused by an innumerable amount of things. That's how my depression shows itself, where everything tastes gray, everything feels gray, music doesn't sound as good. I mean, it's just anhedonia is a strong part of mood disorders, and so is anxiety and depression. So let's talk about depressive disorders just by themselves. A lot of people that we all know here suffer with depressive disorders. So let's go with the first one. Disruptive mood rate dysregulation disorder, which is DMDD, is a mental disorder in children and adolescents characterized by a persistently irritable or angry mood and frequent temper outbursts that are disproportionate to the situation and significantly more severe than the typical reaction of the same aged peers. So this is what you're going to diagnose children with, DMDD, if they have a depressive disorder. So now the next one, probably the most important one, and what a lot of people that I know online deal with, is major depressive disorder. And let's go over that one real quick. So it's called clinical depression, MDD, major depressive disorder. It's a mental disorder characterized by at least 2 weeks of pervasive low mood, low self-esteem, and loss of interest or anhedonia in normally enjoyable activities. Introduced by a group of U.S. clinicians in the mid-1970s, the term was adopted by the American Psychiatric Association for this symptom cluster under mood disorders in the 1980 version of the DSM-3 and has been widely used since. So clinical depression is what they're going to call it, because there's a huge spectrum. Clinical just means that it's pathological, it's an illness, it needs to be treated clinically. Major depressive disorder kind of comorbid with bipolar and other mood disorders, but we'll get there. The diagnosis of major depressive disorder is based on the person's reported experiences. Obviously, all this shit's going to be anecdotal testimony and personal psychometrics. It's behavior reported by relatives or friends, and a mental status examination psychometrically, just like I was saying. There is no laboratory test for the disorder, but testing may be done to rule out physical conditions that can cause similar symptoms. The most common time of onset is in a person's 20s, as it is a late onset disorder, with females affected about twice as often as males. The course of the disorder varies widely, from one episode lasting months to a lifelong disorder with recurrent major depressive episodes. Those with major depressive disorder are typically treated with psychotherapy and antidepressant medications like SSRIs. Medication appears to be effective, but the effect may be significant only in the most severely depressed. Hospitalization, which may be involuntary, may be necessary in cases with associated self-neglect or a significant risk of harm to the self or others. Major depressive disorder is believed to be caused by a combination of genetic, environmental, and psychological factors. I would say that's the case for any fucking mental disorder, with about 40% of the risk being genetic. So 60% of it is environmental. And just because something is environmental doesn't mean you can think it away. But 40% is genetic. The risk factors obviously include a family history of the condition, major life changes, certain medications, chronic health problems, and substance use problems. It can negatively affect a person's personal life, work life, or education, and cause issues with a person's sleeping habits, eating habits, and general health. Major depressive disorder affected approximately 163 million people in 2017. The percentage of people who are affected at one point in their life varies from 7% in Japan to 21% in France. Lifetime rates are higher in the developed world, 15%, compared to the developing world, 11%. The disorder causes the second most years lived with disability after lower back pain. God, that's pretty high up there. What do you got to say about that?
It's ironic that low back pain was
Yeah, I know.
was second to that for Hohenheim.
Yeah.
It is funny that people think that you can think it away, as you mentioned, as if we were omnipotent and had the libertarian just not be depressed anymore.
Yeah, we have
but
control over our neurons, right?
what was that?
I was just making a joke saying, yeah, we have control of our neurons.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, maybe. I mean, I already brought it up once. I don't know if I want to tangent this too
Go
much.
ahead.
But do we choose our beliefs? I don't think we choose our beliefs, and it seems as though our beliefs do have some, correspondence to our mood and whether we're depressed or not.
Yeah.
But I'll have some food for thought, and then we can go into it a little bit later if we want.
No, you're good. Do you know anybody with clinical depression? Do you think you have clinical depression?
Yeah, I'm pretty positive I do, for sure.
Okay. Okay. Nothing wrong with that, by the way.
But yeah, I've been on Lexapro, which is an antidepressant.
Yep, I'm on Lexapro right now.
Out of my own will, not free will, but whatever will I had, if I have such a thing, I decided to stop taking it. I don't know if I'm doing good right now. I don't know if I regret not taking it anymore. Obviously, I have the will to go back on it if the causes work its way to me doing so.
Well, you may have better results for your depression, but it will cause side effects such as like anhedonia, and everything kind of getting a little gray, things not being as special and as like you can't get as excited as you used to. Things like that happen when you take an SSRI for an antidepressant. There's different antidepressants than just SSRIs, but that's the major one that's going to be given to you. Wellbutrin, Paxil, Lexapro. There's all kinds of ones that are used for, and you need to see your physician and ask which ones are going to be the best for your neurochemistry as far as they can tell, right? I mean, they can't do an fMRI on you every time you go into the fucking doctor, but they just have to. It's kind of like a trial and error thing with antidepressants. So everybody really knows what clinical depression is. I'm sure we don't have to go too further into it. I can probably let's talk about the cause real quick. Hang on a second. Whoops, I'm losing my internet's being crazy. Oh, Kapow, I'm on my show. Yeah. That's what it was doing. I was wondering what was happening. Sorry. All right, there, we fixed that. I was still in Discord and I was hearing somebody talking. I was like, who the fuck is talking? All right. Let's go over we know the symptoms and signs like insomnia, sex drive is ruined. You have major depressive episodes where you lay in bed for a fucking week. You can have psychotic and symptoms and delusions if you get too terribly depressed and it affects you to the point of where you're not taking showers, you're sleeping all day, everything seems horrible, you don't want to do anything. That's the signs and symptoms. They're quite obvious. The cause, the biopsychosocial model, which is basically just saying the neuroscience of how it affects, what is the easiest way to explain this? Biosocial models are a class of transdisciplinary models which look at the interconnection between biology, psychology, and socio-environmental factors. Okay, so biopsychosocial takes into account biology, psychology, and sociology. All right. So the biopsychosocial model proposes that biological, psychological, and social factors all play a cause in major depression. The diathesis stress model specifies that depression results when a pre-existing vulnerability or diathesis is activated by stressful life events. The pre-existing vulnerability can be either genetic, implying an interaction between nature and nurture, or schematic, resulting from views of the world learned in childhood. This is how it always works with mental disorders. American psychiatrist Aaron Beck suggested that a triad of automatic and spontaneous negative thoughts about the self, the world or environment, and the future may lead to other depressive signs and symptoms. So, adverse childhood experiences, including childhood abuse or neglect or family dysfunction, markedly increase the risk of major depression, especially if more than one type. So childhood trauma also correlates with severity of depression, poor responsiveness to treatment, and length of illness. Some are more susceptible than others to developing mental illness, such as depression after trauma, and various genes have been suggested to control this susceptibility. So, like with all things, it's when we're raising children, we're raising adults. The mirroring that we do with our children and the and how we treat them and how we treat them as human beings, that's if you can do that environmentally, then you're giving the biological factors less of an ability to impact your mental states. If you have a good childhood and a good adolescence and all this, it's just going to be better. So parenting is a huge part of all these mental disorders, but some, like bipolar disorder, are like 80% genetic, 20% environmental. And then there's other ones that are backwards. There's some that are more environmental than they are genetic. PTSD obviously is much more environmental than it is genetic. You might have genetic traits that allow you to attain PTSD, if that's how I can say it, more easily, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have it. It's just like you can have a wonderful human being who's stable, intelligent, all this kind of stuff, and they came from the worst family background you can imagine. That has happened. So we have to take each individual case as the individual case itself. That's how psychology has to work, because of how people are and how their neuroscience is, how their neurobiology is. So let's see, genetics. It says family and twin studies find that nearly 40% of individual differences in risk for major depressive disorder can be explained by genetics. Like most psychiatric disorders, major depressive disorder is likely influenced by many individual genetic changes. In 2018, a genome-wide association study discovered 44 genetic variants linked to risk for major depression. A 2019 study found 102 variants in the genome linked to depression. The genome is our entire genetic structure of our body, of ourselves, right? The genome there's the human genome, and then there's our personal genome, which is the collection of all our DNA and all our genes and the chromosomes that link, you get it. Anyway, so research focusing on specific candidate genes has been criticized for its tendency to generate false positive findings. There are also other efforts to examine interactions between life stress and polygenic risk for depression. So, and this also has a pathophysiology as well. And just so that we can remind everybody what that word means again, we'll look it up again, because I love learning new big words. I'm not a genius. I have to read this stuff like 80 times. Okay, pathophysiology is the disordered psychological processes associated with injury or disease. Oh no, excuse me. The disordered physiological processes. So pathophysiology is talking about, I guess, the illness as it is imposed on the body, I guess. The disordered physiological processes associated with disease or injury. Yeah, I guess it's just talking about the underlying physiological processes that tell us about an illness. That's the best way to say it, I think. It says the pathophysiology of depression is not completely understood, but current theories center around this is a new word, monoaminergic systems, the circadian rhythm, immunological dysfunction, HPA axis dysfunction, and structural or functional abnormalities of emotional circuitry. I could get into this some more, but this is going to get into some neuroscience, and I don't know if it's necessary because we all know what major depressive disorder is by now. This is going to talk about how it's treated, how the illness forms. It's talking about all the different genes and stuff. I mean, there's some words in here that are very difficult for me to pronounce. So anyway, see the diagnosis, clinical assessment. A diagnostic assessment may be conducted by a suitably trained general practitioner or a psychiatrist or clinical psychologist who records the person's current circumstances, history, current systems, family history, and substance use. The assessment also includes a mental state examination, which is an assessment of the person's current mood and thought content. So you're trying to see if they have excess pessimism or thinking about self-harm or suicide. Primary care physicians have more difficulty with under recognition and under treatment of depression compared to psychiatrists. I have fallen prey to this. My parents would try to take me to general practitioners to try to treat my bipolar, even though nobody knew that I had it, including myself when I was in my mid-20s. And it was under-recognized and under-treated. I did not get the right medication for my mania and my psychosis. But it looks... let's see. These cases may be missed because for some people with depression, physical symptoms often accompany depression. In addition, there may also be barriers related to the person, provider, and/or the medical system. Non-psychiatric physicians have been shown to miss about 2/3 of cases, although there is some evidence of improvement in the number of missed cases over the last few years. A doctor generally performs a medical examination and selected investigations to rule out other causes of depressive symptoms. These include blood test measuring, TSH and thyroxine testing to exclude hypothyroidism, measuring the basic electrolytes and serum calcium to rule out a metabolic disturbance, a full blood count, including ESR, to rule out a systemic infection or chronic disease causing these depressive symptoms. Adverse effective reactions to medications or alcohol misuse may be ruled out as well. Testosterone levels may be elevated to diagnosed hypogonadism, a cause of depression in men. So if you have low testosterone levels, you may have hypogonadism, and that might be causing some of the depression that you have. Vitamin D levels might be evaluated, as low levels of vitamin D have been associated with greater risk of depression. Subjective cognitive complaints appear in older depressed people, but they can also be indicative of the onset of a dementing disorder, such as Alzheimer's disease. So these are all the ways that they can be tested to see if you have all these other things besides depression before you actually get there. But please, 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 guys, go to a psychiatrist, go to a clinical psychologist, go get psychotherapy. Do not just go to a general practitioner. It's okay if you want to mention it to them, and if they know what they're talking about, that's awesome. But get educated about this stuff. Get yourself to a fucking psychiatrist. Get the right kind of meds, get the right kind of prognosis, and see if you can't help your life out some, get in a better situation for yourself. To anybody listening in the future, there's nothing wrong with getting help with any of this stuff. So that's pretty much major depressive disorder. What do you think about that, Perry? Oh, I think he must be charging his phone. Anybody else with me? Scott? You're playing chess, aren't you?
I just got in here, so I caught like the tail end of you finishing that. So, good.
Yeah, we went over major depressive disorder causes, pathophysiology. Went over some different neuroscience features of it. Talked about how many different types of tests they can do to rule out other things besides depression. So yeah, you caught that. You caught me reading that.
What's up? What's up, man? I got like 20 minutes because I'm on my break.
There's a lot
at work.
of people on our server that deal with major depressive disorder. I think we all know what that's like. Everyone.
I'm impressed at modern medicine right now.
We'll get to bipolar in a
how
second,
powerful Oragel
Scott, I'm
is.
so mad at you. I'm gonna get you, dude. Just coming to my show and then either
I
fall
went and
asleep
got
or
some.
playing chess. I'm gonna kill you.
Is it
But I love
holy
you.
hell? Is it worth it and powerful?
Perry, are you
I
back
literally. It hurts like hell in my mouth, and then all of a sudden, I literally touched it to it. It was like 30 seconds later. I was like, "Oh, I'm all right right now."
I guess it's just me and Jack right now. Hey, Jack.
It's difficult
Let's
sometimes.
bullshit
I'm
while
not
we're
gonna
waiting
lie,
for
man,
you.
because like
What's on your mind?
there's all these pills online that promise you stuff, and modern medicine hasn't gotten that far yet. So they sometimes things.
Oh, that shit's so good, dude. I forgot. I should have told you to go get some. That shit.
I don't. I mean, probably. How about?
Yes. Jack, how dare you trust medical science? I'm gonna need some.
That's no. Some of. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Absolutely.
There's way better drugs out there than the ones they're giving you, Jack.
It's taken a lot of effort on my part due to this energy-wise, introspection-wise, and
so clinically tested since like
drug-wise to get
80s,
anywhere to deal with this.
Like they've been using SSRIs.
It was debilitating
like
at one point. I was incapable of going to work or to school.
Some real oomph behind it in terms of research.
Constantly slam just copious amounts of alcohol Jack, to go to bed.
I'm sorry.
Because otherwise I'd just sit there and think about how terrible my life was constantly.
Share, since it's just us all chilling in the room,
it took a lot of mushrooms and a lot of thinking, like I was saying, introspection and time, and fucking self-medication with fucking pot and alcohol. Not that I recommend the alcohol at all. But I very much recommend the pot. But it's become manageable now. I have the only thing that it's still pulling back on today at this point is just details, small stuff. I can't. I can do the big stuff, clean the house, clean the kitchen or whatever. But the second it gets down to the details inside of there, I just completely hand wave them. I'm like, it'll be fine. I did the major picture thing. There's no need to get any deeper involved in that. That keeps me from finishing a lot of projects. So. It gets me upset at myself that I'm not doing it, and then I get mad at myself or upset at myself, and it gets a little worse. So I really have to like find a time and be like, okay, and I'm not feeling it as much. Go, get everything done now. And then the second that wave comes on, the second that it comes out, I'm just like. It's like I was a marionette and I was able to control my own strings and pull myself through everything. And then the second the wave of that depression comes through, it's just cut. All right, I'm done. I want to go lay down. I have zero energy. That can happen almost instantly.
Yeah, and that in turn can cause more depression.
Makes it difficult.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the introspection really helps. Taking a lot of time to think about why you think and feel the way you think and feel about things, and extrapolating that as far as you can in your mind and getting like as much as you can out of that is extremely important. I would implore everybody to take some time and like just legitimately think about why you feel things, not what you feel necessarily, but like why. Be like, why am I so sad right now? And if you come up with, I don't know, there's a pretty good chance that something's going on.
I know it does, and I feel for you. I know everybody here knows a little bit about what you mean, at least a little bit, you know.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. It is, yeah. It has taken a lot of time. Peter, are you here? Funnily enough, chocolate is known to temporarily actually
you've
make
got
you
the right
happy.
idea, and there's a
help
really
in the
good word for
production
this. It's called
of,
metacognition.
Dopamine
You got to
temporarily.
be able to think about your thoughts and think about your feelings and analyze them simultaneously as you're having them, as you're interacting with others or
Oh, it doesn't like
And yes,
shoot
you
it up
can
at anything
interact
that
with yourself.
matters, but like, you know,
So I am
eating
seconding
chocolate
everything
versus
that
not
you're
eating
saying.
chocolate.
That's what's up, Peter. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're talking about the whatever
eating a
like
box of
proprietary
chocolate.
chemical it would be that does that inside of chocolate or whatever the fuck. Yeah, no. I'm just talking about it in general.
Endorphins?
Well, it's actually debated. Yeah, that was. I thought it
Oh, man.
was debunked
Yeah.
a few years ago. Well, the sweet taste, maybe, but I think the actual chemical thing, the claim that was made was debunked. So, yeah, although eating cacao is actually pretty beneficial.
Cacao.
It's
And eating
cocaine,
cow,
chocolate.
too.
That's the reason why Peter stayed up.
Fuck y'all vegans. You're
Peter.
debunked as well.
Peter, Wise Ape says why he thought you were going to bed.
I was going to bed.
You're occasionally
I'm
true
sorry,
slander.
Wise Ape. I was actually on to bed. And I just decided to hit the call-in thing, and I just saw my good friend Thomas on here. So
You do that.
Yeah.
so
Oh,
sorry,
man.
man. I actually was on the
Yeah, no, I
bed. Nice.
So
aside
Okay,
from
dude.
depression and anxiety, I'm lucky to
Chocolates.
not be affected too deeply by
There's only
any
one left.
Eat them up.
mental disorders, at least none that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I just
That's it.
I've no cocaine this night. Excuse me. Don't insult me with your slanders.
Exactly, and I really can't.
I'm going to go for a
give any better
protest
advice
piss.
than really
All right.
examine yourself. I
Do
mean,
it.
I feel
Do
like
it,
not
man.
enough people take the time. It is. Is it I believe it was freaking. What are kind of some mental disorders that like
Yeah, I mean, I would say that
aren't
everyone
quote,
has some form
unquote,
of
like,
mental
real,
aberration. Maybe
that are,
not a
like, real
disorder
in
'cause
pop
they
culture?
still function, but everybody's got cognitive biases,
like split
cognitive
personality
distortions,
disorder? That's a
mental
totally different thing
aberrations,
than
you name it.
damn it. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well, that's good stuff because that one
It's very
gets
scary.
overhead of people a lot.
It's the very scariest thing.
Oh, man. Was it yeah? While you're well, that was I
Well,
saw
we
I
went
heard
over
somebody online
dissociative
earlier. Was it
identity
some like
disorder,
red pill guy? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, before you got on here,
He
we
was
went over
going on
dissociative
about
disorders,
like
which
I think he
falls
messed up his
under that,
words and then
that's
changed them, and I didn't like how he
multiple
used them
personality disorder, so everybody
interchangeably.
pretty much has a good
He
idea
says
what that is.
men's narcissism is earned.
Yeah.
when it comes to
It does, and it gets misdiagnosed. I would say,
like how they are in general, and I got really confused. But then in the next sentence, he said confidence and arrogance.
Psychology, they just are.
And so I was like, and so that made me interested. I'm like, narcissism is such a far cry from confidence or arrogance.
I'll read this.
That it's such a,
I'll read this.
that it's so strange to me that anyone would use them interchangeably. But then I realized, people don't seem to, in general, get how different a narcissist would be versus somebody who's simply arrogant.
No, it's a far cry, because people. No. That's correct.
No, I'd be on your side right there. And Brady also is echoing that point. A lot of people use the word narcissist because it's the first psychological term they understand, but then they forget the meaning and then just use it for everything. So yeah, no, that's I was like, I think it would be cool if we got
a standard deviation of pattern.
It's been like, as far as I can tell, a blessing and a curse to get more people involved with knowing what these terms are.
That's when you're going to get the disorder.
It's a blessing because more people are able to correctly identify what's wrong with them, and being able to understand what's going on with yourself, give that information to a professional, and have them help you is just incredibly useful. However,
and misused.
However, every now and then, somebody will hear these buzzwords and think, "Oh, I'm quirky and I have this, and now that I know all of these terms, I'm going to use them every time somebody wants to, question me." No. Well, people in here know. People in here know. Yeah, please. Yes.
And that's what I've been preaching this entire time. So go ahead. Well, hopefully I've covered it. I mean, if they're listening to my show, hopefully I've covered it well enough that they know that that this is very ambiguous. Yeah, exactly. And whoever will listen in the future, hopefully somebody will listen in the future,
professionals are touch and go.
Yes.
They are not always right.
No, that's the problem with being, like I said earlier, a hard and a soft science. Psychology, cognitive psychology, all of it is you get it from personal testimony, you get it from family and friends, you get it from psychometric testing, you get it from all kinds of ways to determine if these patterns of behavior are actually pointing to a mental disorder. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. And the DSM-5 is the best way to assess any of these things. And what we've really got to remember through all of these mental disorders is ongoing long-term patterns of behavior. These traits that show up in the DSM and the ICD, they usually have anywhere from 5 to 9 to 12 criteria, personality traits, or pattern behavioral patterns that tell you if this person has such and such, right? But the diagnoses get so crazy because there's so many comorbidities with different disorders. And I mean, some people with DID have mood disorders and schizophrenia, and there's like 5 types of schizophrenia. It gets really difficult. So clinical psychologists and psychotherapists have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, but having to respect people's opinions of themselves, self-diagnosis when a number of comorbidities may exist that you don't know is, I'd say, and now a cultural conundrum.
Yeah. No, that, I mean, that's true.
It's very true, and it's becoming more true at the moment.
Does anybody in your family suffer with serious depression or anxiety, Peter?
My sister does.
Okay.
I think it's more to do with diet and sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah. Environment does make depression sometimes. That's a
And
fact.
then the idea, the actual environment as well that she's in, like,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, I'm not going to go into it now, but we'll talk about it another date. But yeah,
Yeah.
lack of social, you know,
Graces.
well, no, lack of just sociality,
Hmm.
just that kind of
Um,
thing.
no,
Yeah,
I'm with you. Let me go around the room real quick, Peter. Scott, you with us? Scott. Scott. Perry's finally back. Yay.
So,
Sweet. Did you hear anything that Jack was saying or Peter was saying?
yeah, I caught a bit of the narcissist discussion and how people kind of semantically have different ideas or just
Yeah.
misinterpretations of what a more common usage
Yes.
of the definition is.
Yes. Did you hear Jack's experience with depression?
Jack said that it comes in waves and that he tries to get as much done as he can when he's not feeling too bad. I can somewhat relate to that. It all starts when I wake up. How am I feeling when I wake up? Do I have time to go back to bed? Usually, if I do have time to go back to bed, that
Good night,
is
y'all.
a beneficial extra hour or so that helps with my mood. So sleep perhaps is a very important factor when it comes to, I don't know if we now put this in the nature environment part of.
Yeah,
of
probably.
everything.
I mean, it's so hard because some of it's 50-50 in psychology, but not always, right? Bipolar is going to be more genetic as far as I know.
But I think my grandma was. I think perhaps both my grandmas were depressed. I know my dad's uncle had some schizophrenic tendencies. I'm trying to think of more depressive orders. I think my aunt is bipolar, I believe. So the moral is genetics also perhaps plays a role. I don't know if it's generation like good hair does, or you know how that kind of stuff works. But when I'm
We don't
feeling,
choose our genetics; it's just the makeup of our neurology. You know what I mean?
so if I could take a Jackian type of interpretation on my own depression, I try to go through. I just kind of try it. You got to do it. You got to do it. I try to put myself through these kind of disciplinary methods where so I fast. Today I fasted for 19 hours. I just broke my fast about 10 minutes ago.
Awesome.
I do that for the fact that I eat a shit ton of food because I love food. It is one of my pleasure drives is food. So I try to kind of hedge some of the diabetic, obesity type of factors that would come along later in life by fasting. I've been doing this for about a year and a half. Feels good. Another thing I do is I take cold showers. Try and keep this brief. Take cold showers, another disciplinary type action. That when I'm feeling depressed, I kind of say, okay, well, I already feel shitty. Let me put myself through another somewhat shitty environment. And the endorphins that come about working out, of course, also working out without eating. I always work out before I eat. Those three things are kind of like the top three things that I do to help hedge my my inevitable depression that I will surely deal with for the rest of my life in the absence of medication.
Yes.
I advise people to
Or
try
future
medication.
science. Hopefully future science
or a
we
future
can
pill,
just
or
we can
future,
just
or
replicate, we can directly replicate neurotransmitters and neurochemicals and just inject where we need to inject. You know,
listen,
that
I
would be
will
nice.
be maybe not first in line, maybe fourth or fifth in line
Maybe fourth
for
or fifth,
experimental studies. I will definitely not be cremated. I will donate all of my organs and my body and my brain to science, because I'm not a narcissist, or at least that's what I think. That I'm selfless and I want to help other people's lives. I mean, the fuck do I care? I don't need a grave, man. I mean, what? Like, you're gonna be food? You want?
Good night, Peter.
Later, Peter. That's
Go ahead,
about
Barry.
it. That's enough of my rhetoric. But putting yourself through those disciplinary actions can help, perhaps. Take a cold shower. Put yourself in an uncomfortable. You've heard Jordan.
I mean,
Peterson
you're right.
crying about
It's
this
like
kind of
it's
stuff.
like changing your your routine dynamic can getting out of your comfort zone can sometimes maybe counteract the depression, you know?
Even when you feel like shit while you're doing it, that's the whole
Yeah.
point. Is to try and
Yeah.
try your best to have free will, if such a thing exists, and snap out of it, so to speak.
I've said this before, but try to have a serious panic attack where you're passing out in traffic.
Oh jeez, yeah. That,
I've had that happen too many
and
times.
you're stuck,
dude.
like you can't go anywhere, like you feel like you're just trapped, like.
I have to pull over to the side of the road or I fucking get run over.
But yeah,
yeah.
that's my.
That's your take on major depressive disorder. And it's a spectrum. You may not have it like full hard in the paint, fucking
Right.
major depressive
I don't
disorder,
go
because
weeks
that's going to be
laying in bed, so
yeah.
I'm
And
grateful
you
for
take
that.
showers and you got a job and all this stuff. So yeah,
Right.
it's probably not major depressive disorder. You may have some clinical depression, but you're not probably super deep in it. And if you
Right.
ever do get there, you know there's ways to get out. So
And I would love to help those people who aren't as fortunate, and I try to do
fuck
that.
yeah. Fuck yeah. Of course. So we talked about the DMDD, basically the mood disorder in children, the depressive disorder in children. We talked about major depressive disorder. Let's quickly mention dysthymia, which is a mental and behavioral disorder, specifically a disorder primarily of mood, consisting of similar cognitive and physical problems as major depressive disorder, but with longer lasting symptoms. So dysthymia, longer lasting symptoms of major depressive disorder. Then there is psychotic depression, which we mentioned a moment ago. In major depressive episodes, you can become psychotic, which means dissociating and losing touch with reality, or whatever we think reality is. I mean, we're not speaking philosophically here; we're speaking psychologically. All of this is philosophically up for debate based on semantics. So, if it's going to be that kind of discussion, just shut up. You ever heard of seasonal affective disorder? This is one that I have looked at before. It's a mood disorder in which people who have normal mental health throughout most of the year exhibit depressive symptoms at the same time each year, commonly but not always in the wintertime with reduced sunlight. That's going to be a hard one for me to say is a disorder like major depression, because it is obviously a disorder in the DSM. That's so weird that it's the same time each year, associated usually with wintertime. That's crazy.
It makes a lot of sense, though, because sunlight has been proven with the vitamin D to help aid towards preventing depression, and the way that the Earth's axis it gets hit by sunlight is a lot less direct in the wintertime, so you actually need to be outside in the wintertime for 2.5 hours. For a white male like me and you, in order to get the sufficient amount of vitamin D, and only 20 to 30 minutes in the summer because it's much more direct.
I don't know if everybody heard this earlier, but I'm going to read this small paragraph again. And Perry, this is, let's just read it one more time. A doctor generally performs a medical examination and selected investigations to rule out other causes of depressive symptoms. These include the following: blood tests measuring TSH and thyroxine to exclude hypothyroidism, the measuring of basic electrolytes and serum calcium to rule out a metabolic disturbance, full blood count including ESR to rule out systemic infection or chronic disease of the body somatically, adverse affective reactions to medications of alcohol misuse. Testosterone levels may be evaluated to diagnose hypogonadism, a cause of depression in men. Vitamin D levels might be evaluated, as low levels of vitamin D have been associated with greater risk for depression. Subjective cognitive complaints appear in older distressed people, but they can also be indicative of an onset dementing disorder like Alzheimer's. Cognitive testing and brain imaging can help distinguish depression from dementia. A CT scan can exclude brain pathology, like illnesses, in those with psychotic, rapid onset, or otherwise unusual symptoms. No biological tests confirm major depression. That's a big thing to remember. In general, investigations are not repeated for a subsequent episode unless there is a medical indication. So they're gonna, if it's a good general practitioner doctor, they're gonna go through all these tests. You know, if you have the money and the insurance to be able to rule out, do you have depression clinically? Do you have the disorder? You know, there's definitely ways to more easily treat the symptoms if you just have a few or half of them in the DSM. But if you've got all of them, you got the disorder, it's going to be a harder treatment. It's going to be a harder prognosis. So much more difficult prognosis. So that's we've pretty much covered all the depressive disorders besides atypical depression, which is just a different type of depression, kind of like unspecified depression. Then there's, of course, postpartum depression. Everybody knows that with a mother, childbirth. There can be depression after the childbirth. Let's see, how long are we into the preaching here? We don't have any other callers. Paul, did you want to say something?
My seasonal affective disorder has comorbidities with my bipolar.
Mm-hmm. Is yours during the winter time or what?
I have it mostly during the autumn, so it's losing light.
Okay. Well, Perry, you still with me?
Yes.
I'm just going to ask. I just wanted to ask you if you had anything to say about any of these other depressive disorders before we move on. I'm going to explain bipolar disorders and then probably give it a stop.
Nope, I'm gonna head outside and light up this joint. So go ahead.
Light it up. Light it up. Let's see. Hussein, give me just a second. I'll take your call, but give me just a second. Let me read a couple of things. Or what did you have something on your mind real quick, or what?
Am I still giving you a second, Thomas?
No, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
No, I was just calling in to let Travis know to congratulate us on his bullcrap hockey predictions. I know he's avoiding me all day. Cool. Depression stuff is cool. I get it. Yeah, all the DSM-5 stuff. Cool, great. Don't care.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Travis, can you please just call in and congratulate us, the Penguins, on our amazing season that we're going to have in the playoffs, where your Washington Capitals, I know you're Canadian, you probably feel some type of way about me being, American and having a little bit more knowledge on you when it comes to this game on the ice. All right, but
he's being dunked on right now. He can't even come up here. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
Travis is probably doing other things right now. He's
fine.
just listening.
I'll catch him another time. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to pick on him a little bit. This is
North, what's up, brother? My man. My man, North. What it is.
Yo,
Can't hear you. North, are you there?
yo.
Okay. What's up, buddy?
I want to know the thing that you always hear about sociopaths being made and psychopaths being born. Is that a real thing, or is that just some crap that you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct. So with antisocial, I've done a ridiculous amount of study into narcissism. That's one of my main areas of expertise. So antisocial personality disorder is usually colloquially known as psychopathy or sociopathy. And it is true that usually in the colloquial sense, sociopaths are made and psychopaths are born. Psychopaths have a malfunctioning amygdala, and so they don't feel fear. They don't get that sympathetic nervous system excitement. They don't have anxiety over things, and they have no empathy whatsoever. So they make whatever decision they damn well please. Sociopaths are a little bit more messy. They're not as high and tight as like a psychopath. But when you're just talking about antisocial personality disorder, you can go to the DSM-5 and look up the traits, but the main ones are going to be lack of empathy. But see, here's the thing to remember. Every psychopath is a narcissist, but not every narcissist is a psychopath. There's a big difference between malignant narcissism and psychopathy. So,
has there been definitive studies of people, especially children, that doctors or whoever is looking at them are just like, we can't let this person be on their own. Like they're too disremoved from empathy or just the limits of morality to leave them alone. Is that a thing, or is there always a strategy you can take?
To defend against psychopathy, is that what you're talking about? To get these people out of
Mold,
society?
if you have a genuinely psychotic child, is there always
like killing small animals and having no empathy, that kind of stuff is yeah.
Is there always a way to kind of mold them into someone that can take care of themselves?
I mean, most psychopaths and sociopaths don't go in because they don't think there's anything wrong with them. They think that they live just fine. So there's not a lot of testing done on them as there are other disorders of personality. I'm trying to answer your question the best I can, but there's... Can you rephrase the last part to me?
I guess what I'm trying to say is, are there any lost causes?
Sadly,
will never,
yes. Yes, psychopaths will never have, unless we find something in the future, we can't repair what is wrong with their amygdala and their, their thalamus or whatever is malfunctioning. And with sociopaths, once they go down that road and they get in that mindset, and these like malignant narcissists and stuff, that's all above our pay grade. We're not going to be able to change it. There are some psychologists and psychotherapists who think that you will never change a serious narcissist or an ASPD person. They're incapable of it, and I tend to think that that's probably true. Sadly to say, from all the literature I've read.
Have you ever heard of a book called Blindsight?
No, I have not.
Science fiction novel.
Sounds cool.
It's about the. Sorry, I think there's a little delay between us. It's about deep space travel, and part of the time that it takes to travel between these cosmic bodies. You have to put regular humans into stasis, but then you need somebody to manage the ship while they're in stasis.
Right.
And in this world, they've discovered that, like, far back in our human evolution, there was a branch of homogeneous, I guess, that were literal vampires. And then,
What?
yeah, and they basically, like, they didn't have a certain protein in their blood, so they had to feed off of other humans in order to get this protein in order to survive.
This sounds wild, man.
Yeah, and so, like, we bring them back from the dead. They died out, and we bring them back from the dead because they are advantageous to space travel. But in addition to being, like, physiological vampires, they're also, like, because they have to hunt other humans, they are the perfect psychopath. Like, they can't feel remorse, but they're extremely intelligent. Yeah, I would check it out. It's a pretty interesting book.
Okay. It sounds pretty interesting. But yeah, that's going to be your main traits of a psychopath, of an ASPD, is you're going to get lack of empathy, severe narcissism, grandiosity, cold and calculating demeanors, lots of charm, lots of superficial charm. I can go through it for hours. I study narcissism and the personality disorders all the time because they just don't have good prognosis. They really don't. There's not much you can do, at least now in modern medicine. And sadly, I would say 1 to 3% of the world is narcissistic or psychopathic or ASPD. From what I've read, it's a few 100 million people.
Is that another one of those spectrum things where everyone perhaps at some point may show some narcissistic traits, even over the most
Yes,
trivial
all
things?
teenagers show classical narcissistic traits. Most teenagers, not all, excuse me.
Gotcha. That's what I thought.
So, like, you can't diagnose narcissistic personality disorder in its 4 forms until about 22 to 25.
Well, that's when the brain fully develops, is 25-ish, right?
In
So-
males, yeah. In males. Females, it's younger.
Oh,
So they
really?
can be diagnosed a little bit earlier.
That's
yeah.
interesting because females also live longer than males, so they live extra long.
They also have a higher tolerance for pain.
Yes, that is true.
Women are superior. Not women, females, excuse me.
Yeah, whoa, watch your terminology there, buddy.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's see. We could talk about bipolar, but I could save that for next time. I don't know. I mean, we've got us up here. Hohenheim's got terrible back pain. Scott is MIA. Paul's having fun in the chat. Let's see. We're an hour and 29. We'll go for a little bit longer. What's up, Hohenheim?
We've got North and Lance down there. Oh, I've just been injected, so I should feel great soon.
Ooh.
Hopefully.
I bet. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're going to be floating like I am. I'm going to try Scott one more time. Scott! He does this all the time. He falls asleep on me.
Marcus, I think that was. I don't know what it might have been Brady. It wasn't me. It might have been North or Brady.
Yeah, North was talking about.
Well, let's see.
It was a book he was talking about, guys. He was talking about a book.
Of course, I'll let you decide, Thomas, but North, if you want to say anything. If not, I would perhaps want to pose the question to everyone. Do we choose our beliefs?
No.
No. So Thomas says no. I think I agree.
No.
Hohenheim, I figured, would say no. Does anyone think the opposite? If so, send it in the chat or call in.
I challenge anyone to force themselves to believe that fairies exist.
Force yourself to believe that gravity isn't real.
Yeah. Done in the chat.
So
done. You gonna start floating upwards, bro? Gonna be in the stars, bro.
I figure there may be at least one person in here, but that could be a side quest later on. I mean, like I said, go ahead and moderate. We got North and Lance.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
If,
I'm just thinking because I'm getting a little hungry. We'll keep it going for a little bit longer, but I may go ahead and cover the bipolar ones because it's not that much. I mean, just to explain them, most people know what they are anyway. But this is all, of course, for future posterity to come back and listen to these episodes.
Save
Paul,
it.
Save it for next time.
Yeah, so you can expand more.
Okay.
I think people will have a lot of questions.
Yeah, bipolar is a lot to get into.
Are you here, North? Mr. North Squatch, are you here?
Sorry, I'm not looking at my screen. What's up? Oh yeah, North, you still here? Hello, North.
I see there's a man by the name of Adolf as a speaker who I don't know.
Oh, that is the collector.
Collector.
Okay. The collector.
Nice to meet you. I don't think we ever met, but
North, I'm gonna remove you from the queue, but you can call back in anytime. You know you're always welcome, brother.
Yeah, let's get Lance in here.
All right. I gotta piss real quick, guys. One sec. Perry, you're in charge of the room.
What's up, Lance?
Hey, yeah. Oh, how you doing, guys? Well, as far as you mentioned something, just briefly about whether fairies exist. Well, I'll have you know that my brother-in-law's father was the captain of the Staten Island Ferry, and I used to ride it all the time. So I'm here to tell you, fairies do exist.
The semantic game, I love it. Yes, no, Fairies, and I know you know that. I've never been on a ferry personally. They look cool, though.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you ever go to New York City, it used to be a quarter. It was a great thing to do. Like at the end of the night when the sun's just coming up, just before dawn, and you go out and take the Staten Island Ferry, and watching the sun come up as you take the trip back, right? Because you see Liberty Island, and then you get closer and closer to the southern tip of Manhattan. It's one of the most amazing, it gets bigger and bigger as you're coming back. So the trip coming back from Staten Island into the island, yeah, it's quite a experience.
And they probably planned that perfectly just so they hit it just in time to get a good view of the sunset or the sunrise, depending on.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, I used to take it like we'd be partying all night, close the bars at 4, walk around town a little bit, say, hey, gee, we're still up at sunrise. Let's go take. Coming back, yeah. Say hi to all the homeless people that they used to let sleep on the ferry. But, yeah. So anyway, your topic was, as far as bipolar, there's one organism on our planet that you can't get more bipolar than the Arctic tern, right?
What is it?
The Arctic tern.
What? Yeah, I don't know what that is. What is it?
Oh, it's a bird, and it has when it does its migration, it goes from the North Pole to the South Pole and back. That's true. Well, anyway, bipolar, get it? Yuck, yuck.
Do you know, that's interesting, and that's a good metaphorical way to give us another fact of nature for the question. Do you know why they do that? What is their incentive from going from North to South Pole? I mean, I'm sure it has to do with climate, right?
Yeah, it's weird. You'd think they would go from like cold to warm and warm to cold, but to go from one to the other, it's crazy.
Right.
It's like, next thing you know, you're going to tell me to fish, to swim upstream for days just to spawn and then die. The hell's going on?
So you don't know why?
No, I really don't. I don't know, but they're called the Arctic tern, and yeah. But what they say, one good turn deserves another.
Let me ask you this, Lance, because I know that, I believe that you're of the religious type. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I don't know if it's theistic or deistic, but the reason why this question came up to me, I don't know if you were listening about 2.5 minutes ago. What do you say to this question? Do we
choose our beliefs?
Beliefs, right? What do you think?
First of all, I'm definitely not religious. I do believe,
Okay.
I believe God exists, but I have a very different
So deistic,
definition of
right?
God. Yeah,
That's,
essentially.
yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. As far as whether we choose our belief, now I think they pretty much proved that no such thing as determinism. But I chose to get up and walk across the room. Yeah, but sometimes you don't. So what about the times you didn't and all the rest of it? So they've been doing brain stuff where they do say that there might be some activity like a millisecond before you do something, which would make
Well,
it
that's definitely true.
So
that's our neurons fire faster than we think. It's it's almost speed of light.
That one time, the times that you actually do something, that would scientifically speaking, that would kind of turn determinism on its head a little bit, wouldn't it?
I find it interesting that you went immediately to the whole free will determinism thing. I will grant. So hold on.
Yeah.
Just to bypass this whole argument, because we could talk about that for an hour and a half. I can give you whatever belief you have in that. I don't know a better word to use. Whether you think it's determinism or whether you think we have some sort of will, free will, whatever you want to call it, I will grant you that. Even then, are we choosing what we believe in, or are we simply choosing the method at which we acquire the knowledge?
Let me see if I can give a better. Can I choose to believe that God exists right now? Can I just force myself to actually truly believe that God exists?
Yeah, sure.
Damn.
False things.
So hold on, Thomas.
Not that God's false, but you can believe in false things.
I want you. I said this very specifically, and I want to answer from you, Lance, real quick. Do we choose our belief, or do we choose the method at which we acquire the thing that we supposedly believe? So if all you've read is the Bible your whole life and nothing else, you're probably going to believe the things in the Bible. But if you if you had free will and you're able to now choose, I go on the internet, I look on Wikipedia, whatever, isn't it that which we're choosing and not the belief that comes as a secondary effect of that? I mean, don't we choose the methods in which we find out the knowledge that we believe? Or do you think that we just bypass all of that and we just choose what we believe and it's set in stone kind of thing?
I don't think it's either or. I don't think it's like...
Okay. What's the alternative?
Either or both or neither, right?
It could be either or both or neither.
Yeah. So, for instance, what if someone? Okay, so what if someone? So it's tricky, right? So I mean, you can believe anything. Of course, you can choose.
What's? Give me your alternative. You're posing an alternative here. What's the alternative? Let's just do that.
The alternative to what?
Well, you're not. I set out what I thought was a pretty fair and practical scenario where are we choosing the method in which we acquire that knowledge, whether it's word of mouth, whether we go to school for it, whether we go to the library, or do we immediately just believe a certain thing? We somehow just bypass all of that. I mean,
well, first of all, the first question, I don't. It's not. It's a confused kind of like a contradictory premise. So, if you're asking the question, do we choose our beliefs or do we just choose the methods? I think that we don't choose the methods. In other words, I can't help my experience. I can't help if I live, like you're suggesting, in whatever environment and whatever been affected by.
You can't choose to read this book instead of the other
when
book
you say the methods, so in other words, wait a minute. So in other words, there's a lot of unconscious biases and unconscious things and just whatever my brain does in terms of editing the accumulation of everything in my brain and says, no, I'm going to cherry pick these 100 or 10 or 1,000 things. So the quote unquote method by which we choose our beliefs, there's not like a method. It's just all there.
Right. Remember, now it sounds like you're arguing, this is now a deterministic type of argument you're making. I thought that we had agreed that we have free will in this whole scenario, that, there's a reason why I started with that and then carried on.
Well, no.
Based on... But if you believe in determinism, then I completely agree with everything that you just said.
It's not about
go for it.
It's not about believing in determinism. It's It's listening to people who are way smarter than me and saying, that's what these smart people say, and here's what those smart people say. So I use my powers of logic and and discerning, what makes the
Well,
most
that's
sense logically.
determined.
And I choose this set of experts who believe that determinism versus those set of experts that don't. So it's not like what certain things, I suppose, if it's not something that's been thought through by humanity that long, maybe Lance can come up with his own set of facts and dots and then connect them. But I think I'm just trying to assess what other people have said as opposed to kind of say, no, I believe. No, determinism either is or isn't. So it's not like I believe it.
Hold on.
But I believe that the determinists are.
Hold on. You speed ran 4 things at me. Let me take the one thing you said.
I'm really only saying one thing.
Well, let me pick out. There was a lot of rhetoric for just to say one thing. Let me pick out this one thing that you said. Lance came up with X, Y, and Z. You said something like that. Did Lance choose to come up with X, Y, and Z, or did that just happen based on previous causes?
I have no idea.
Well, you said that you were just spewing off a bunch of like hypotheticals, and one of them was, did he listen to this guy, or did Lance just come up with the X, Y, and Z? Let's say
both.
you do.
It's back and forth.
Let's say you right. Well, let's say this a priori situation.
Oh, oh my God, dude! You just read my mind because I'm saying that's exactly what we're having. Is it a priori versus? Yeah, that was exactly what I was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, well, fair enough, and I'm glad that I'm connecting with you in terms of that. But try and answer me this now. A priori, do we have free will for a priori thoughts that, if such a thing exists a priori, are we in control of those? Is that where the control aspect comes in? Where do we choose all of this, or does this just happen based on preceding causes?
Well, I mean, it's like, yeah, no. For instance, if you have 100 shades of blue and you leave one out, our brain will fill in that other shade. It'll know what that shade is. We've never seen it. We never experienced that shade. But our brain will say, okay.
We have no control over that, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, what I'm saying is that we do have a priori knowledge. I think that we do have, and I think that they've proven that, like in terms of like language, like Chomsky and all these people and mathematics, that we don't have to be taught it. That that unlike certain other things that we need to be taught, not math and not language, we would figure it out without anyone telling us. A bunch of random people.
Yeah, like a universal generative grammar module, kind of like Chomsky talks about. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and which is kind of amazing in that we have so few instincts. We're not very smart when we're born. We need much more care for a lot longer time than most mammals. But that's because we can, and that's probably part of the natural selection and evolution is that therefore, by the time we become functioning on our own, we have a lot more brain, stuff that we can stuff into our brains as opposed to imprinting at birth, and then you don't change much. You learn what you learn right away, and then you don't learn much. So I'm sure it's like the inverse proportionality of our helplessness as other than most animals, and our ability to think big thoughts. But see, again, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, so anyway, I think that when it comes to determinism, I don't think that necessarily applies to beliefs because I think it's a lot more complicated. I don't think it's easy to discern how and why we come up with our beliefs because of all our inner biases and things that we bring to the table that we don't even know about.
So both factors of those determined things, such as instincts and the big thoughts, as you called it, that humans have that are different from animals, those two domains, if we could create a dichotomy real quick, both have influence on our beliefs. Is that your position? Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the discussion always turns into the free will debate.
Right.
Where both parties are lacking evidence and the burden of proof.
Yeah.
So it's always...
and a lot of times when I come in or any group, I'm not trying to say, well, this is my position. It's just like it's something I've thought through some of the things. But here's another thing to throw a little monkey wrench into the whole discussion. What about the idea of say you have two people, identical twins, right? Which they do really think alike. They're not just identical. I actually had a girlfriend, she was a triplet, and she had identical twin brothers. And I could tell them apart. It's really hard, man, when they're really identical.
Oh, yeah, I have identical cousins who look exactly alike. I'm so good at differentiating them, though.
Yeah, but you could spend time with them. Here's the point, right? But they act so similar in so many cases that it's like you can't even tell after they walk around and talk. It's like they act alike, they talk alike, like Patty Duke. Anyway, okay, two identical twins. They could be exposed to the same, say, negative thing. Let's say it's an alcoholic abuse, family. So one, because of that influence, could be affected by it and become an abusive alcoholic. The other one might say, holy crap, I don't want to do that, and wind up doing the exact opposite. So when we say what our beliefs are, it's not necessarily the case that if you take two otherwise, people with the same background necessarily and give them the same stimuli, that they would necessarily come to the same beliefs. You see what I mean? So that gets complicated too, right?
Yeah, because they have both the a priori identicalness and they have the a posteriori seeing the other.
Yeah, or the day that they made that decision, one of them stubbed their toe and got in a car accident, had a bad day, and said, "Screw it, I'm going to take whatever the decision would be to take the cruel path." The other guy had a wonderful day, won the lottery, met a new girlfriend, and had a wonderful day. So, I mean, that might change their quote unquote beliefs. No, I think they should get jail time. No, I think they should be. You know what I mean? And which is again something that's in our unconscious that we don't even know is affecting our decision making. So it's not necessarily that complicated in terms of how we arrive at our beliefs. It could be deep thinking that say, no, I'm going to think about this for months before I believe what I'm going to believe, or I don't care, I'm going to flip a coin, So, I mean,
are you ruling out, though, that those deep thoughts that we have can't be had deterministically through nature and instinct and the evolution of all of that? I mean, think about in 100 years from now, like, do you think that we'll be just a little bit smarter than we are now, or do you think that, I mean, I don't know.
I definitely don't think that we're smarter than we were like 10,000 years ago. Absolutely. Not only not smarter, I think they might have been smarter than us in a lot of ways.
Oh, so you don't even, okay.
Because here's why. If you're really smart, like the people that built the pyramids, or if you go to Göbekli Tepe in those places, you know what I'm talking about, right? Where it's like 11,000 BC and they had this really fancy stuff that they didn't realize. So we go back being civilized a lot longer than 7,000 years, like anthropologists say. So what I'm saying is that whatever the knowledge was needed, to achieve something, there wasn't a lot of gobbledygook and like PhDs around to tell you that some other way could work better. They had to go with the way that worked best. So I think that like pure knowledge and the highest form of knowledge, it was universally accepted and it was kind of undoubted. There wasn't as many people. There wasn't many controversies. So I think it's entirely possible that we've gotten dumber, not smarter in 10,000 years.
Uno momento.
Someone's a little echoey, by the way. I don't know if
it's Don. He's here with
us.
Then
No,
you're fine. Let's let Don jump in real quick.
I was gonna say, go ahead, Don.
I actually liked a lot. I actually liked a lot of what you said, Lance. But I think that the place where you made an error in your thinking is that they had to do that, which was the best to do. That's not true. People for a long time survived doing things that weren't the best things to do. And not only did they survive doing the things that weren't the best things to do, they ritualized them and they did a lot of different things with them. They considered them as sacred, and they did a bunch of things with the things they survived to do. But it doesn't mean it's the best. What we have absolutely learned as a society is that we've developed these like groups that their whole purpose is to like learn and understand the world and figure out the best ways to do things. And in our Western culture, it's the academic process, one of the hallmarks of like Western society that, that has kind of like really changed the way the world is in many respects, has been adopted by other cultures and then they influenced us. So like this global initiative of like an academic process that humanity has like used to figure out what are the best ways to do isn't just some doctorate. It is a body. It's a part of who we are as humans. Just like we have government and policies and religions, this is like a thing that we do to figure out what is the best. to try to figure out what is best.
Need quote unquote best, in other words. Here's my point. What I just said about high tech, okay, after the destruction by a giant comet that had fragments that were big enough to do like a pockmark around the Earth. It was on one certain strata because it had to have a certain orbit. It's very, if you listen to Graham Hancock, I think he's got some great stuff to say, because it's not like there's a set theory that he's going against. Nobody knows about the pyramid still and all that stuff. So it's not like he should be shut out, because until somebody comes up with, he's not like saying E equals MC2 squared is wrong or something. Anyway, what he suggests is after the, say, apocalypse, these advanced cultures, they were doomed, because just like now, they were elites. They had people that were doing their stuff, slaves or whatever. But so when the shit hit the fan, it was the hunter-gatherers. Okay.
Yeah, I've read some of Graham Hancock's work. I'm following.
Okay. So just to make this point, it was the hunter-gatherers who, after the apocalypse, these elites, that's where he thinks Göbekli Tepe occurred, because it wasn't an agricultural society. Every time we've seen megaliths, whether it's no matter where, these megalithic structures always is around agriculture, because you need a sedentary people that have many generations really of one place, and they can be organized more, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And wealth accumulation. What they said was
that is a fact.
Okay, but what they know about Göbekli Tepe is that there's plenty of animals, even seasonal. They know that it was for a while, and they have all kinds of that, but they don't have any seed. They don't have any implements, no sign of agriculture. He says, well, how do these hunter-gatherers all of a sudden know how to do this stuff? He said it happened at the same time as the apocalypse, whatever, the comet hitting the Earth and all that, or the fragments of the giant comet, so that when the shit hit the fan, these advanced people discovered the hunter-gatherers, who in fact helped them survive, just like the Indians helped the more advanced supposed culture, Western culture, to survive. It's not like it's some mystery about that the more primitive cultures would be able to live off the land. So he said it was these hunter-gatherers who saved the asses of these advanced people, and they showed them how they built these big megaliths that were then buried, you see? So maybe they built them.
What does it have to do with people, when push comes to shove, they would have to do what is best?
Well, let me just go back to so to make another point. I don't think that necessarily happiness of humans coincides with a more advanced like technology or anything else. I'll make two quick points. One is in a philosophy class where I thought, if birds with their little talons and beaks could do these amazing things, dolphins, they're so smart with their flippers, they're really like as smart as humans. I said, if they're so smart, why don't they build like skyscrapers and, structures? I mean, if birds could do it, dolphins could build whatever they want under there.
But I never said, I'm going to make a point. No, you have to stop, because you're not talking about anything. You've moved to a different point.
Yes, I am. I know what I'm saying. Let me just finish.
Saying that we are smarter. I did not.
No, I'm not saying that you're saying that. Please let me just make the point that I'm making, because it's not okay. So the idea is they don't need it. That's why they don't build that stuff. The point being is that the Industrial Revolution wasn't to make life easier for humans. It was to get more work out of people. Technology today, you can go back to 1870 in Leland Stanford. Technology was designed to get people to be more productive so that we can control them and that we can get more out of them. So I do not believe that a happier society is always the more advanced technologically or academically. Not to say that science and antibiotics, it's a complicated issue, but the idea we're so academic now that we're advancing. I'm not so sure we are. I think that we need to say, you know what? We have plenty of, and this has been said, we have plenty of technology, and instead of trying to advance it, if we went to about mid-20th century medical, transportational, and all that stuff, that's about all we need. Anything beyond that, we're just doing it for shits and giggles and to control people. We're not going to get any happier. You know what I mean? Like rich people in colonial times had it pretty rough going.
Lance, you got to
go ahead.
Go ahead. You're telling the moderator to go
I meant
ahead.
shut up, Lance. Yeah, I meant to shut myself up. That's all I meant.
Up here. I mean, Don doesn't think that you're answering his question. And
I'm sorry.
It shouldn't take you 30 seconds to do so.
I was referring to it. I'll be very brief. 3 words I'll answer.
Said that, you continue your rhetoric.
I'm sorry. I was just going to briefly respond. I think that suppose you have, let's say, spoken culture. right?
Let
Where it's
him.
just
How
handed
about you
down
let him
verbally,
talk
not written
and
down, not a lot of
reiterate it
science or
just for the
microscopes,
sake,
and the
just in
natural
case we
healing and
don't
herbs and
understand.
just the understanding from word of mouth of,
If
say,
Don
Indian
Don has
culture.
that
I
delay
think that would hold up
Yeah,
really
I would love
well
to
in the most
and
advanced
then
I
you can go
actually
part,
from
agree
there.
with
in
quite a
in a
lot of
really
what you
advanced
just
way
said
to
about that
Western
many of these
medicine,
things are
even with not just popping pills
developed
and all
not
that.
as
Because first of
a
all, it's horrible.
they're
You know
not
what I mean? So
necessarily like
I'm not so
there's
sure
other
that
means and
how
means
we
to them
approach it
that
is
society did what they
necessarily
needed to do
the best
with what
way,
they
even though it
had,
seems like it
right?
because it's so
All
pure.
of
It
that
really is knowledge.
is
There's real
1000%
facts that are
true. It's also
indisputable.
the
2 + 2 is
reasoning
4 and all these
ability,
equations in
right?
science.
The thinking
What I'm saying
ability
is
of
that I
those
think that
other
the ancient
Homo sapiens,
intelligent people, they had a
5,000,
more pure
6,000 years ago,
knowledge
isn't
that
really
did
that
not
much
need a
different than
lot
it is
of
today.
filtering. And
The
all
potential
through the
wise, I'm sure
Enlightenment,
if
it's
one of
just
them
the
was
way it
born
is.
and they
It
just
gets
like
more complicated.
put him in a
So in
modern
other words, there's
family
a lot
before
of
the age
different
of
ways to
1, we
do
wouldn't really
things.
know
They
much of
had
a
to find
difference
it
in that
one
time.
way, and it was like maybe the
That's
best
true.
way, as opposed to now where there might
The
be
immune system
all
might
these
be a
other
little fucked,
ways.
but it might
It's
be
hard to
from
explain, and you got
potentially
other
wrong or
callers, so
whatever it
we
is,
can
but
flesh it out later.
they'll
But
probably be very, very smart and
so in
capable.
other words, I guess what I'm
What I was
saying,
talking
that the
about,
knowledge
and
of
the
like
thing I was trying to
nuts
get
and
a
bolts and math
clarification
and
on
equations and
was
science isn't
when
necessarily
you said
superior to like
they would have
word of
done,
mouth.
when
We
push
just went
comes
out in
to shove, they
nature,
would have done
trial and
what is,
error over
they would have, like,
generations.
they do
This is
what
the
is
stuff that
best. Like, that's how
works.
that works.
I'm not so sure that the
And
latter isn't just as good
the
as the
second
former
part of it,
in a lot of ways.
when you said, and since when did we let some doctors tell us what is best? When I brought up those examples, and you like, I was trying to like make a point that it's not just some doctor, and it's people don't always do what is best to survive. They do what it takes to survive, whether it's best or not. Right? Not accounting for all the extraneous variables that might harm you in the long run, right? Like, and like that's just how humans work. So in that, what does what you just said have anything to do with that? And if like, what's your comment on that? About your comments like, oh, it's just a doctor with some PhD, and people always do what is best. And I'm saying that that's just not true. Like, and the reason why the doctor is important because it's part of an institution that we have developed to figure out like how things work and what is a great way to approach solving our solutions, solving our problems and getting solutions. That's what I was trying to ask. All right,
Did we
that was
lose
a bit
anybody?
long-winded.
That's okay, Don Don. I don't mind hearing the dialectic between you two guys, but we do have another caller, Marcus, in line. Go ahead. That's okay, Lance.
No
You can,
problem.
yeah.
And yeah, so you would have to test that, right? It can't just be like a logical statement. It has to be a thing that you can
It
verify.
is. It is.
Figure out how to verify that for
That
me,
is
and
verified.
I'll change my
That is
mind.
verified. So in other words, people are saying, in other words, all the synthetic drugs that we have now, they all originally, or even the ones that are brand new, came originally from nature and from plants and animals. And they say that by destroying the Amazon, we're losing a lot of new drugs that we're going to discover. Most drugs are not created out of someone's imagination synthetically in a lab. It's a copy of what happened naturally. So I think it's verified that people that understand the natural world better, they can teach the scientists a lot more than the other way around, because that's the reality of how medicines occur to begin with, right?
No,
Well, don't you think that's what medical science is trying to do? Is to find
Okay,
out
so
what's
what they're going to
happening
do is they're going to go into labs and they're going to study stuff that people for generations and thousands of years
Hold on,
have been doing.
Lance,
You sure about that?
hold on. You have to stop filibustering. It's very uncomfortable.
No, it's okay. Go ahead,
Here's
Scott.
the problem with that like framework of thinking about it, right? So if you're saying like, oh no, these people in the past, they knew it. They didn't really know it, right? So it's true. Like what is the plants and animals and all the different biodiversity that we develop drugs from comes from nature. But that doesn't mean some shaman living in the fucking middle of nowhere has some truly better understanding of the world that's going on around them. That's not actually the case. What people do, like what scientists do is they find information that says, okay, well, we do have some set evidence that like the St. John's wort has like this specific effect on like heart rate or something like that. So then they go and they take that and they start breaking it up into its individual chemical components, right? And then they start like testing those chemical components. They find out which chemical components are the ones that like actually have a benefit. And that's where drugs come from, but it's not like some shaman just like.
Yes, it is. I mean,
no, it's not.
Yes, it is. So what you're saying is that these people, I think you're trying to say that it's just kind of like they just grab something that looked neat and this is trial and error.
No, he didn't say that.
No,
Lance, he never said that.
Can I say this?
Why do you ask him? Ask him instead of saying what you're probably saying is this and then attacking that for the next 5 minutes.
I'm not strawmanning you.
Are you saying no? I'm not saying you are strawmanning. Listen, just ask him. Are you saying this? And he can clarify. Scott, are you saying some shaman just picked up an herb and said, "This is neat. Here's medicine"?
What I'm suggesting is why is the people who have been experimenting with all kinds of different shaman, etc., who have discovered these things and have turned people onto it, just like Western drugs are wonderful, that maybe they didn't come up with antibiotics or whatever. But so I'm not saying it's all one or the other, but the wealth of thousands of years when these people say that this works for that and willow bark or this or that. And, I know a lot of old Asian hippie women mostly that this stuff really works that they talk about. So this is based on so you can prove it with science later, but somehow it seems like what you're saying is, well, they might have discovered a lot of stuff, here and there over a long time. And no, it's not just, but that somehow once it goes into a lab and then they prove it scientifically, stuff that's already been happening for thousands of years, that somehow that puts the imprint of truth on it. No, it was already true and it was working for people long before they had the science to prove any of it.
No, we're wrong, because think about it. There could be like a certain group of people that you come up with this like paste that's made out of nuts that like when you apply it, it really helps them. But another group of people who are highly allergic to nuts die from it, right? So that's the point. I'm not saying that like shamans are just pulling shit out of their ass and been like, oh yeah, do this. No, they're doing things that work, but it's just not it's not repeatable, and that's the problem, right? So that's what.
Of course, it's repeatable. Well, you're really underestimating the true knowledge of these natural healers and all these people that have done this stuff. By the way, we lose about 50,000 people a year from infection. We lose about 50,000 Americans a year from stuff they pick up in the hospital.
Okay, so while our systems have holes, issues, and problems, we can say for a fact, and this is a demonstrable fact, the medical system saves more lives and treats ailments better than other systems around it. Yeah. The fact we have problems that come with our immense amount of wealth, that like obesity and chemical related problems, the advancement of society, that's not like medicine. That's not like the scientific method. like that might be a result of the way science was done, or in areas where science is extremely corporate, and like studies are hidden for political measures, but that's not an indictment on the scientific method.
Yeah.
That's not an indictment on like the verification process of figuring out, does this thing actually work? Because in so many cases where alternative medicine or shaman medicine was tested, it didn't do a fucking thing. And it was just nonsense.
Forget I ever said the word shaman. It's not shaman medicine.
Second.
This is a whole culture of people. This isn't like someone.
Can
I throw in one quick thought?
Sure. No. I want to finish. I want to finish my thought. Fine. I will correct myself. Not shaman medicine, but like Azerbaijani folk medicine that my grandmother like is into, or whatever it is. And like drinking tea if you have like high blood pressure or whatever these fucking things. Tea doesn't help high blood pressure, okay? tea is a vasoconstrictor. It's not the right thing to do when you have high blood pressure. And we know this. We've tested this a few times. But like I said, there were some cultures who recognized the aspirin properties of the willow tree. And like when that was tested, that was shown to work. Science never rejects that because it does work. Right? So when I say like
aspirin is a synthetic version of the willow.
I'm aware. I just said that, right? I just said that. So what you're saying is like, yeah, of course they had some treatments. They were a part of a society that healed each other and had systems of healing and systems of caring for one another. Of course.
Okay. Can I make 2 quick points? So, first of all, what I'm saying is the vast majority of drugs that exist now came from nature. Many of those drugs were discovered by indigenous, not all of them. There's still drugs that every indigenous person on the planet hasn't discovered. All the drugs that we use, it came originally from nature. So the idea that somehow synthetic, like drugs in labs and scientists, they all are making synthetic drugs using chemical formations that were found originally in nature. So the people that were closer to nature, like the hunter-gatherers I was talking about, who can know how to survive in certain ways better. Let me make one other point. You talk about high blood pressure and heart attacks. Can I make a point? Heart attacks and strokes and all these ailments. You say Western medicine is so wonderful. It's Western culture and it's Western diet and it's Western. Hello, can I please? I'm not filibustering here. I'm making a new point. All the Western cultural things that affect us negatively are the things that quote unquote wonderful Western scientist medicine is going to solve. It's the same elites that have caused the problems to begin with by what we eat and how we exercise or don't in sedentary nature. And no, I don't think that you've proven anything in terms of that Western medicine is so superior when it's like they get all their drugs from nature.
I specifically started with like that started in Western culture with like the scientific revolution and has become a part of the whole world where their cultures and their ideas affect us. You know how many things have been learned from other fucking cultures and incorporated into like the way in which work is done in science? Are you kidding me? Of course, so much. Science is such a consistently changing and evolving like field. The same methodology that they did in the late 1800s it's not even close to what happens today. Right. So
no, it's different.
So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Real quick, guys.
I apologize.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Lance, you and Don finish up real quick because we do have to get Marcus in here. Okay.
That's fine. Get the last word, Lance.
No. Fine. I was going to chime in later, but I don't know what. In other words, I just don't see it. When all of our drugs come from natural, like willow bark or some kind of plant, some wonderful quality, and to say that, well, no, but Western medical science in labs somehow is like really the real deal. No, I think that a lot, and plus the fact that the way it's run now, it's all about what kind of drugs they're going to give us. They don't cure stuff anymore. They're not even trying.
Wish I knew more about medical science to retort. Lance, you can call right back in, brother. Let's let Marcus get in real quick. He's been waiting for a while. Okay. All right.
Wild night.
All right. Marcus, you're in. Sorry it took so long. I just wanted Don and Lance to finish that up the best they could. You have the floor, my friend.
Yes, thank you very much. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, I would like to address some of the things Lance, I think, was trying to portray.
Okay.
And also some dichotomies that he drew that I don't very much agree with. Let's start with what I think he was attempting to illustrate throughout what I would call the physiognomic relations of the type of world lived. Something that only can be observed from an existential position. I would say, as for the bird making the nest or the beaver making the dam, all of this can be called and named technology. This originally, I think, is where the etymological meaning of the word technology comes from.
I guess anything that's not the body could be considered technology if it's systematically
No.
built.
Does
right?
No.
Is that what you're kind of getting
Does
at?
techno come from
No, if I
techne?
might finish, I would say that.
Oh, sorry, Marcus. I thought let Perry ask his question, his clarifying question, real quick.
Well, it sounded like you were going to give some etymology of it. Does techno come from techne, which I think is art in Greek?
No,
Yes,
no,
the
techne
word
is
techno.
like
Hold on.
skill, like crafting
Yes,
skill.
Correct, Perry. I was referring to the etymological stem word of the
Gotcha.
word techne.
I
But
figured
to
that's
not
where
get
it was coming from.
Yeah, you're right. To not get drifted on an etymological meaning, I mean, we can get into that later. I would quickly say that techne is a type of tactics and strategy of a type of living. And if we might quickly analyze it from a sort of Darwinian evolutionary perspective, it is a means of one's survival. And technological progression being nullified by cultural stagnation or cultural regression, then I would agree. But I think you yourself, what you would call natural medicine or unnatural medicine, you are making the same error that you accuse the gay scientists of making by calling shamanistic initiations or Magian initiations to be of the past, of the ancient times, as you put it. Ancient to us, of course, is something very different than it was to Herodotus, and something very different than it will be from Vico from 300 years ago, 400 years ago now. So I would say if you are going to criticize an idea from an existential perspective, I would say look at the bigger picture and realize that, after all, the cultural appropriation of technology does not subjugate the individual and the individual appropriation of technology. No one is forcing you to participate. No one is forcing you to use a computer. No one is forcing you to use the internet. Culturally, we have adapted to do so, and there are reasons behind it. And if you do not wish to be of Western culture, well, then I suppose you can leave. But
Let's finish up real quick and let's let somebody jump in.
right, I guess what I attempt to illustrate is sort of irony when you look at these things from an existential perspective. Whereas when I hear Dandan, for example, say, well, these things are good and these are for the better good, Lenz's critique seems to be the very same argument, that he just has a different definition of what's good or what is the greater good or what has progressed to be. I think all cultures have a unique sort of world experience and a world expression. We can see this reflected in art, in architecture, and other cultural aspects, as well as science, medicine. Ours is that of infinity. And we see that with our maniacal obsession in the molecule and the atom. And even in our medicine, this is reflected to the point where people consider the medicine that we make, us living organisms in nature, to be unnatural. I can put on a lab coat and walk inside of a lab. Am I now outside of nature?
So you gave I like that definition of techno in terms of you added the aspect of survival to it. Seems like you're just defining it with a bunch of epistemology backed up by it, which I like when that happens. Though this is now the second time that you've said unnatural. What is unnatural in your epistemological?
It's a good question. What is unnatural?
definitions?
That is.
What are you referring to when you say unnatural?
Well, me, myself, I was referring to Lance and Lance's usage of the word. Me, myself, I don't consider any drugs to be unnatural. I don't consider anything that is to be unnatural.
There you go.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all. That's what I was.
I agree
getting
with
at.
you actually.
Yeah.
So
That's what I was. Gonna
that's what I'm saying. I don't see science like when we look at like the ancients and like their intelligence of like living the best way and figuring out amazing things. We are just like them. We have our way to figure it out and how to do. Like this is how we currently are doing it. Think of them as like dumb or primitive. It's like this is. I don't think it. I think it's people don't do that as much today. From what I've noticed.
Real quick, from nature.com, it says DNA evidence may indicate a possibility of intelligence being a neutral trait in human evolution, suggesting that ancient individuals living 3,700 to 4,100 years ago could have been as intelligent as modern humans.
Sure.
There you go.
100%. But we also then have to go like, how do we measure intelligence? That's what I'm saying. Like possibility-wise, 1,000%. Like there's no reason.
We
to
do
think
know that our
couldn't-
standards of education are way better than they used to be.
And we are more educated. We are more literate.
You can look all the way back. Yeah, exactly, Don. You can look all the way back to the Renaissance and just see how much better our education system is because how much better we are at it. So,
do you think those people? What were their beliefs in God? Those people 3,700 years ago, or however long you were saying.
Oh, I mean, it had to have been a lot of ancient worshiping their ancient ancestors, worshiping nature spirits, worshiping, ancient Celtic folk traditions and stuff where they worshipped nature spirits and things like that. That's where all religion is going to usually begin from, is those extrapolations from the imagination.
It's really amazing to see like series of like tribes in Papua New Guinea because those tribes are they're very primitive in compared to like our living standards and technological like advancement.
Very in tune with
And,
nature, probably.
Yeah, and they have like crazy rituals. Like some of them have like they cut every like 15 years like the finger off of a daughter, or like a girl, or like someone's son to like fend off spirits, and they in like a great honor.
Right.
Right. They have like really interesting things that they do. They have like, I think it was some guy on the server showed some ritual about like men coming in boys like noses or something.
Oh.
And then they have like other cool.
Cool.
Like, I think, other cool rituals, which would be like like a dancing ritual or a
Yeah.
medicinal practice for like health, which is like bathing in like the salt water or something for like cuts and bruises, you know, cool things like that. And there'll be like rituals around it, and like for like wonderful marriage rituals and all that other cool stuff humans do.
And do
Oh,
they
yeah.
have testable and repeatable evidence that doing that helps them positively, and that
they
the
don't.
evil spirits don't continue when they do that?
No, they don't have that, and they don't have testable evidence. The salt, they have like their, you know, basic
Dogmas.
human like experiential way of figuring things out, which works in some respects, right?
Mhm.
It has faults, and gotta deal
Oh
with
yes.
those faults.
Oh yes. That's why we have science. Yes. Well,
Hey, mental disorders used to be, demons and
Right.
screwing out things out of your head, listing all
That's
those
right.
mental disorders, right? This is
True.
the product of that endeavor, and I would dare to say that this is better.
Yes. Mentally, like mental health wise, I would rather live now than any other time. Unless there was something in the past, like way in the past, where people weren't born with like bipolar or psychopathy or anything. But I doubt that's the case. I'm sure that people have had mental disorders ever since.
Yeah, I mean, madness
Plains
is
of
as
Africa,
old as
you know?
humanity, right?
Yeah,
Speak about madness.
because
since-
evolution's a sloppy bitch, and it doesn't perfect genetics for us.
Evolution does not care about the individual.
No, just the survival of the species.
That's why you all need to repent and accept Jesus Christ in your hearts, because He cares.
All right. I choose to believe right
Amen,
now.
brother.
There I go. I chose it. Huntenheim, what's up?
I said, "Amen, brother."
that
Amen.
cortisol is hitting Hohenheim, and he's like, "Yep, Jesus, he's
No,
he's
I-
he's
Marcus,
I don't know
did you
what it-
wanna? Marcus, did you want to say something before I bring Lance in again, and you can jump right back in the caller queue?
Well, that was all for now.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
By the way, I really enjoyed what you had to say, Marcus. It was very well said.
Yeah, same. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. All right.
Is Lance back?
Yeah, go ahead, Lance. You got our ears.
So, just wanted to kind of respond to Marcus. So, one of the definitions of existentialism is that one's actions should be that you should assume that everybody's going to act the way you do, right? So say, okay, if I'm going to do this thing, assuming we have some determinism, right? Back to that. No, but you say, is this the right thing to do? You say, what if everybody did this? That's one of the, say, tenets on some versions of existentialism. I don't know if Marcus would agree with that or not. So what I would say is I'm not anti-tech, right? So in other words, like McLuhan suggested, right, that the Industrial Revolution was a way to make it so that our arms and legs, it was an extension of our limbs. We could just do physical labor faster. And then he talks about, the extension now of our nervous system, that we've pretty much got that knocked with we're wired worldwide, right? Instantaneous communication. So we've now made all that super easy. He said the only thing left now, this is what I meant about maybe we've got all the tech we really need for like ever, is that now it's our consciousness, right? Now it's like, can we take all the stuff we got now, right? Where we can nuke ourselves to annihilation, or somehow figure out safe nukes and create free energy for whatever. So we're at that, we could do it all. So I'm not anti-tech, right? In other words, are human beings somehow, whether it's God or nature, are we ordained to just work 60 hours a week? There have been relatively primitive peoples, even Native American Indians, they've seen like mountains of bones over a cliff. So they didn't always have to work real hard, and they always wanted to crush berries or do things to do art on cave walls. You see? So I don't think that work is necessarily our major raison d'etre, like DNA or, in our psyche. I think that art and creating is just as important. So once we have abolished work, right, if we have all robots, not that I'm in a hurry for that, but I'm just saying I'm not anti-tech. Here's what I would say.
Well, real quick
What we
before
do
before before
as far as
before
this
you
stuff. Go ahead.
before you get to the solution, I want to respond to that statement because I like what you said. I like the direction of it because I agree here in a specific area. I agree here that we were supposed to already have abolished work. Think about it. What happened was at the factory owner, all of a sudden, I don't need as many hands to sew this shirt. So instead of making sure that the workforce stays on, gets paid the same amount or even more because there's less, ways to go, and they invest, in the machines, and the workforce just works half a day, maintaining those machines clean, they can go home and do less labor because there's more machines. What ended up happening is that they just fired half of them because they don't need them anymore.
Right. And
this has been the direction of modern day, like profit driven society in a free market system. This is the
right.
result of it. And then there has to be, new areas created, blah, whatever it is. But these people now have there's expendable labor. There's nope, that didn't move forward. So abolishing work in a sense, I don't know what that necessarily would look
Right.
like in a system, right? So
But here, yeah, to throw this one little kind of thought thing, right? So if I were to say, let's say I'm doing a lecture, right? And there's a whole big audience, let's say our audience right here, and I was to say for everyone right now, imagine your perfect paradise. Okay. Would it be the Jetson world? In other words, it's paradise, right? So you would get up.
I would say Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Can I? Well, let me give you two thoughts. Okay, the Jetson. You just get up, you stand on a conveyor, and you get shaved and washed, and you just stand there. It's great, and you can just hit a button. You don't have to cook and slave and have to slice or garden and get your hands all dirty, right?
I mean, I like that. I would want that.
Oh no, this is one version, and it's high tech all the way, baby. And you can just press a button, and gourmet Michelin star gourmet, whatever they call that, Eggs Benedict comes out, and then you can just press a button and autopilot your flying machine from the office and sit there with your feet on the desk because you don't have to do much. Okay, there. Or would it be like some island paradise where it's just like you're Fletcher Christian, you just landed in Tahiti, and you just want to chill for the rest of your life, like some of those guys did? I will bet you more people would say the latter than the former. And so again, you can go back to Leland Stanford. Here's what's interesting, right? These things never work out like people plan. The transistor helped people like me and boomers separate and have the rebellion of the 60s. What? How? Because the transistor made it, we didn't have to have a plug-in radio. We could go to the beach and listen to wild rock and roll. Ever see the movie Hairspray?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, where they're all rocking and rolling, blacks and whites in record stores?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That was a big deal. But the only way that could happen is that they had transistor radio, not just record stores. It was amazing, right? cancer that rich people, even if they can get the cancer is largely caused by a stressful Western, more than it is in simpler society. So yes, I'm saying that whether people can get the treatment or not, the cancer itself is caused by the lifestyle that the same elites that create our medical community, create our food community, and all the rest of it. They're in other words, so they're curing diseases that they themselves create.
Hold on, Lance. Don's.
Okay, okay.
It's Jesus Christ.
Okay, sure. Cancer is made by the academics to cure cancer, for sure, 100%.
Said that I never said.
You said they. You said
I said the same elites that control our food supply control our different elites that control our medical care. So yes, it's all of a piece. The same people, the same group of elites that are going to. Wait a minute.
No, you wait a minute, Lance. No, you wait a minute.
Let me clarify because you misread what I said. Let me be very clear. Wait, Dan.
No, you wait a minute. No,
let me clarify specifically. What I said was one set of. Wait a minute. One set. Wait a minute, please.
No, you're going to wait a second.
Food supply gives us the cancer.
Lance,
that our elites cures it.
You guys,
reading my point. You're talking about a different.
Moderators.
Yeah, I get it.
Can I just say it in 5 words? One set of. Please.
Take a break. Take a breath.
Yes, I can. Can I say it? One set of elites controls our food supply. Another set of elites is our medical system that cures the crap that our food elite create.
Wait, no.
Under what I said, the medical community is curing the cancer caused by another set of our elites in the food that control our
like
food.
30 words now.
They're run by the AMA and the WHO. They have to dance to the tune of Fauci if they want a dime of funding. Bullshit. They act independently.
Okay. The issue that I have here is while you are describing a system, like the way systems operate, but at the same time saying the system is controlled by specific groups of elites, okay? Like controlled by them. While they have influence like over our society, there is no like they, right? These are systemic things. This is like throwing a wrench into an engine or looking at how an engine operates and being the pistons. They are going up and down to make the engine run. Right? This is, you're like anthropomorphizing it by giving like the they vibe. These elites,
The tune of Fauci.
hands to the whim of Fauci.
Engaged, they control tens of hundreds of billions of dollars of funding.
This is going. This is a road to nowhere.
The problem is that they have convinced Lance that in order to control,
you don't think Fauci is a complete corrupt?
Have distracted him with this.
You don't think Fauci's a corrupt criminal that should be in jail?
Focus on the blatant like crimes that they're committing under his nose.
You're saying
which is
things I'm not
steal
saying.
all the money from the
No,
middle
I'm not
class
doing
and give
anything.
it to the upper class.
No. You're playing games. No, you're not responding to the narrative. No, you're going to ad hominems and you're going to some kind of straw man pigeonholing bullshit. Are you telling me that Bill Gates, who never graduated college, whose wife left him because he's a pedophile, that this guy should control the government? Wait a minute. That Gates should control the worldwide
Lance.
Bullshit.
You've got to stop, Lance. You've got to stop, dude. You have been like bulldozing for like 30 minutes, dude. Like, come on, bro. Like, just take a step.
But yeah, you my point,
dude.
I made great points. I mean, come on.
Come off it now. Lance,
You're literally verbal diarrhea.
I'm rooting for you, man.
After claim after claim of just like, Lance, can you stop? Imagine I told you, Lance, catch this ball, and then I throw 500 balls at you, and then I go catch the fucking balls. Lance.
Dan's not responding to what I said. He's twisting what I said clearly.
Saying,
yes,
let me refrain, let me explain, and then say another
30
nobody fucking things.
Stand for themselves.
Try to address one thing. No.
But if there's three people that have one side of an argument, which happens sometimes, I might be on the side of the three, then the other person should get like 3 times, to be, so no, come on, you should get equal time. If I'm with 3 people that are on one side of an argument, there's one person that disagrees, yes, then they get like 3 times to equal the other people's time. Yeah.
Just have like the self-awareness to recognize when you respond, the amount of time that you take to respond versus the amount of time that you're giving other people to respond, right?
Like, and also, if you want to be a top G, join Pangburn University.
I mean, like,
Lance.
But Lance, you really do eat up the minutes, though, right? Like you get a fair shake, no?
Lance,
No,
they've
fine.
been letting you speak this whole time. They haven't banned you. They muted you a couple times, but then they're like, "Hey, just call back,
No,
take
it's
a
all
break."
good.
They're being pretty cordial. Like they're being a lot better than a lot of
That's
people.
Extremely.
So what about the Fauci and Gates argument? I think they're both
I don't even know
criminal.
what the topic is, by the way. I've been listening.
Wow,
to
Lance.
I'm not here to do
Lance,
a
you have to know how to
lesson.
wrap it up and be concise and get to the point and not give us many stories.
Yeah, you too.
And not give us many balls.
Many balls. This is
I'm
reminding me
very
of
proud
a
of
really
us.
bad
I'm
time
very
in
proud of us.
Thailand when I was in the Navy. Too many balls, man.
Oh.
yeah.
You're throwing way too many balls at us.
Dan made about 5 different points that I was
is
responding
telling
to.
you need to learn how to wrap it
Dan
up.
made like 5 points I was responding to, so it's not like I'm talking
bro.
back or layering any more things.
A lot of notepad in it.
Well,
Write down what Dan says.
Everything you've been talking
What
about today about
points? What were the
tech.
5 points that what were the 5 points that I made that you were responding
Ah,
to?
wow. So now you're going to say, rewind the last 2 minutes of conversation, Lance, and be specific. Thank you. No, but
Get
well,
so
so
deep
do
in
I
it,
would think.
you
Go ahead.
forget where you go.
No,
I can tell you
What is the
exactly what we've been
topic?
talking about. I can
I
tell
didn't
you
say that.
exactly what we're talking about. I know exactly what we've been talking about. We have been talking about. Okay, so I'll tell you exactly. Tell me if these are the points that you were making. You were making these 3 points, 3 major points I can look at. One of them is that the way in which medicine is
So
done
you're
today,
saying that the
just because it
medical
involves a
community
scientific
writ
process,
large,
does
of course
not
there's
mean
wonderful
that it's
doctors that
better
do
or
great
that
things
society would be better
in the
if we ran
system,
in the way
but
that it was beforehand.
overall,
One of
just
the
the
reasons
legal
is
system,
there's
it's
high
not
rates
designed
of
for justice
cancer
any more
in this
than
part of
the
the world
medical
and in this
community.
industrial
America
society
is
as
designed
opposed
for
to other
health.
industrial societies,
Yes,
and
they
that this is
want,
run
they
by
want
like
to
the
keep us
Fauci
sick.
and
I could give you,
Bill
see, this is what I mean,
Gates,
though.
because
It's
what
too
they're
late in
doing
the
is
day to go
criminal
to
by
examples,
trying to
but
like
I
suck
could give
the
you 2
population,
examples,
teaching it
like
pills, making
a
them
woman
dependent upon like
doctor
the medical industry and like the academia as
who
a tool of exploiting the people for power.
came across a situation, a symptom, a disease that she knew was treatable by non-medical, non-pill form. And she said, oh my God, I know it is, but I don't know what that is
Lance,
because I
I just
only
was
knew how
trying
to
to get
prescribe a
verification if
drugstore.
that's that's what you're talking about.
I also know of another story. This is two anecdotes of two examples, like a woman doctor
cards, everything about that. I don't know. But that is an issue that, Thomas always tells me not to be too skeptical or whatever. Like, he always says that.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think that there's more positives that come from it than the potential negatives of it. That's just me. If we ever will get to absolute certainty, perhaps it'll be self-evident.
Meta skepticism. Skepticism of skepticism.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be skeptical of your own skepticism. Yeah, that might not be a good criteria to go
There's a
about.
bit of a meta ontology
The meta,
there with that. You know what I mean? So, I say healthy philosophical skepticism because we take into account all of these things like Descartes' demon and all these radical skeptical scenarios like solipsism and the 5-second argument and all 5-minute argument and all these things, right? We can't ignore those things, but we have to be healthy and realize that those are the extremes, that those are the things that are most likely not happening. But using skepticism in questioning, being willing to question anything that comes your way is the right thing. Questioning everything all the time is the way that you fall into a black hole of nothingness. So
Yeah,
you can't. You have
cynicism.
to have some control mechanisms on it.
What was that, Scott?
That's when you get into cynicism.
Or even straight up pessimism, honestly.
Yeah, straight up pessimism, exactly. Yeah.
What's cynicism to you, Scott?
Cynicism is not trusting other people, thinking other people have ill intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that cynicism paints a lot of our narratives about like the people who work for us in government, and also about the institutions that we have. There's a lot of cynicism around these topics, and less of a approach, a good faith approach to evaluate what they're trying to say. I think you hear this very politically as like exemplified in the conversation we just had with Lance.
Well, but look, here's the thing about cynicism. I really do think this is the case where cynicism is a vice, right? It's a vice like any other vice where it sort of makes you feel good once you come to that position, like, oh, well, fuck everybody else. I know what's right for me, right? It gives you this position of being like, well, I fucking know. I'm the master of my own domain, right? But it's a vice.
Cynicism is kind of like that, but it's almost like people are out to get me, and I think most people have bad intentions. I had to look this up the other day because me and Travis were talking about it.
Oh.
Scott?
Yeah, well, apathy as well. Like me, you've probably heard me say this, Thomas. Cynicism and apathy are virtue or vices, not virtues.
Yeah,
right?
they are vices.
Yep.
True apathy is death.
Exactly.
Laying down in a ditch and just letting it ride.
Yep.
But
I do find it strange because there's a huge strain, not just in politics, but in like modern culture, where the cynic and the apathetic are looked upon as like the ones who get it, right?